on the dangerous side and you see us playing, but you don't want to play with us, you're always welcome to tag me, and then I'll give you guys access to the private branch when there is one. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. It just kind of comes down to the luck of the draw. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started for this week's update. Thank you guys for coming. I'm Robert, the game director, and we have quite a bit to go through in terms of basically just kind of breaking down our progress on the helicopters, on pandemic, on the AI, on the pathfinding, on the optimization, the level design, you name it. Oh, and the balance. Let's not forget the balance because this is one of the first weeks where basically Michael is kind of being able to see all the systems in play for the most part. And he started up a thread on Discord, a mega thread for game balance. So if you have any concerns or tension points you want to bring up, I would highly recommend that you jump in that thread and bug the holy hell out of Michael. Because like this is one of those situations where he's not going to get angry. He gets angry when you tag him sometimes. It's funny actually. So tag him more. You balance if you just tag him, he'll be fine. Um, but you figure, let me go ahead and find that thread. I'm gonna drop that thread in the chat. Give me 1 second. If I can computer, hold on. Let's see. I just saw it earlier. Give me a moment. Where is it? Crashes. Am I having a brain fart? Or where did he post that? I just saw it earlier on my phone. Oh, here it is. I'm stupid. Okay, he made it a thread on a thingy. Okay, so we're gonna drop that in the YouTube chat, and we're gonna drop that in the podcast chat. And there you go. So if you have some gameplay balance feedback that you want to leave, feel free to jump into that thread and bug the holy hell out of Michael of your concerns, things that you want to see fixed, things that you feel are underpowered, overpowered, X, Y, and Z. Now we're gonna start out on the level design. So I'm gonna open up my share screen. So just give me a second. We're going to do the full monitor. Let me switch those over. So Efren has been working on, last time we looked at this island, he was working on the center area of Yuba River Island, the bridge, essentially. So he's been kind of going through and getting Treasure Island ready for play again before the Halloween sale. Because one of our biggest things was building up this section of the island, putting the trees in, getting in all of the vegetation, the foliage, and just kind of getting it more in line with the real world version of this part of the this area of the map. We took a lot of artistic liberties when we were limited by Unreal Engine 4 and not having double float precision, which meant that the further you got away from 000, the more the game would tear apart, break apart, become more inaccurate, crash, become unstable, everything you can think of horribly happening in a game engine, catastrophic meltdown. So with that fixed in Unreal Engine 5, we could finally return back to what we originally intended for basically having a proper, like, the proper real version of Treasure Island and make it to where this is kind of like your tutorial baby island that you guys have been playing on for years, and that's the main course. So we're taking the approach of a layered rollout. Whenever I zoom out and things disappear, it's just the LODs and some things haven't been baked and set up for gameplay. So it's not a bug, it's not a glitch, just it's not ready for play yet. He's still just kind of getting in there and just kind of setting up the navigation and getting it to where, like, when we get the vehicles in and we have the helicopters in, you guys are going to have highways to drive on. You're going to have a lot more things going on. So, like, he's just kind of getting out. Like, if I show you, and I show the navigation, you can see the navigation is basically what vehicles and infantry use. And he has to just kind of work out these kinks and get the navigation all set up and get it all looking pretty. So anyhow, back to what I was saying, is that essentially you can see that we have the rough outline of the bridge going into over here, and then that connects to the mainland. So our plan going into the Halloween sale is to release this in bite-sized chunks, keep it manageable, because right now there's no support in the game for bridges. And when we do the bridges the second time around, we want to do it after the ground vehicles and all the other stuff is implemented, so we can make the bridges a little bit easier to understand what parts are destructible and where you need to hit and make them selectable entities, because that was a huge fuck up that we did in Legacy, where it was like, oh, which side of the bridge do I hit here? Do I hate? I can't tell you how many threads I read on Steam where it's like people are guessing, how do I destroy bridges? I've seen it on YouTube. What do I do? And I'm like, well, that's my fuck up. Like you figure we put it in there and then basically didn't actually give enough player feedback for them to make actionable decisions of like, oh, if I hit this part of the bridge, the whole thing's gonna go. So it's one of those things where like you figure this time around, we'll release this island and this little part as one as the first part. We'll close off the rest of the map because you figure the infected can't get to Angel, and the infected don't understand how to get here until we add the Leviathans and we add in the and the ability for destroying bridges and all the other fun stuff and whatnot. So we're gonna take it in bite-sized chunks of just this is the main course. We'll release this section here for Halloween. We'll close off a section around it. We'll put the carrier, and then in a couple weeks from there, we have when the vehicles are in and the Ajax is working, and we got the Bradley and the Abrams and all the other stuff in. Then we'll focus on getting cross island hopping set up for the infected, and then we'll introduce Angel. And then once that test succeeds and everything's good and we're groovy going into next month, then we would introduce San Francisco North around November to Christmas. And the idea would be is that there's definitely going to be areas that are untextured. It's just going to be like often maybe is what we're thinking. So if you want to play the larger map and help play test it with your friends, we'll have like boroughs this area textured, but it's not going to be completely textured. This is going to be something that easily bleeds into next year. But now that we finally have like eradicated the things that were pulling our artists in every direction, now because mind you, Dimitri's working on the hub. He's trying to finish that by October. So we'll see how that goes going into Halloween to finish the hub and get that fully textured, to get that fully fleshed out. It's one person working on that entire hub main menu, and then you figure that's going to be added in over here as Alcatraz like hub area. So like you can come here and you can turtle, but there's no sock here. So it's more of an area to lick your wounds and suck your thumb and maybe venture out, or you could park the aircraft carrier there on a dock and then just kind of like meander around. Now the biggest thing that we noticed is that these bridges right here block the ability of the LHA6. We were thinking about making it to where it wasn't realistic, air quotes, and raising the bridges. But then when we did that, it made the area look silly. So at this point, what we settled on was that you just can't go into this lower bay area over here with the LHA6. You're physically limited. Just if you want to go over here, you'd have to use the LCACs. If we add dinghies eventually in the future, you'd have to use dinghies. So the idea is that if I go from a top-down perspective of the map, because this right here is our envisioned total play area for the game, set and done, nothing else is being added. And then at that point, we would focus on doing other areas of the world. So when you take this in the retrospect of like what's going on, let me just wait for my processor to catch up because this is a lot to render. Things are raw in the editor, so it's not pre-baked and pre-cooked, so it takes longer for your CPU to figure shit out. So this area right here would be off limits to the LHA6, and you'd have to basically, and everywhere else you can go. Because the Golden Gate Bridge right here is actually high enough to accommodate an aircraft carrier, ironically. So we didn't have to worry about that. At low tide, it's able to accommodate it. We'll just make it low tide all the time. We don't need to do real world water simulation. That's a little too much for us. And the idea is that we'll basically have it to where this is the playable area in the first version of TI, and then just park the aircraft carrier somewhere here. And then in a couple of weeks, once we get the bridge and the other mechanics working so that this is destroyable and they understand how to island hop from here to here, then the next push would be Angel. And then once we are happy with Angel and all the systems are working and nothing is buggy and it's weird, then we'll push on to the mainland. Now, I see a question in Discord, I'll address that question, is that basically I got some really good feedback because I love arguing with people on Steam. Like if you're going to give me real feedback and we're going to have a conversation back and forth, someone wrote a goddamn twit longer on one of my podcasts on Steam. And then I was like, well, he has some good fucking points. So you figure one of the things that he was throwing in my direction so everything doesn't come down to basically just the infected doing this weird like shooting pods and like doing what they do in Space Marine 2, is that he was saying, well, why don't you have a system where people will try and escape from the island and break your evacuation, and some of those boats will crash land on Angel or crash land on the mainland of San Francisco, and that spreads the infection. So you have events that you can basically intercede or interrupt. And that's a cool way, because in that way you can predict it and you can plan for it and you can destroy those boats or those things that are trying to overrun your cordon. So that was something that they were discussing about on Steam. I like that idea in terms of basically, because the other idea we were debating is having it to where Chelsea would build, like, because people turn off the Leviathan, you're fucked. The game's easy, GG, go home. So the other idea that me and Durvar and other people were debating is having it to where they could build launch sites here and then launch pods, kind of like they do in Prototype, and how they do in other games. Space Marine 2 for the Tyranids do it. It's like that, and then that way you could see them, and you could have AA, the SAM sites that you can build in Legacy, to shoot them down before they land in your territory. If you played Space Marine 2, you know what I'm talking about. So those are the two running ideas, but some people really didn't like that in Steam because it makes them a rebranded military organization. But at the end of the day, it's still a video game, and everything has to have a move and a counter move. So I'm stuck between those two ideas. I'm kind of like putting this out there as feelers, and either to get some feedback, to get some criticism, to get some, maybe people are going to jump on the mic in the Q&A part and tell me what they like and what they don't like on YouTube, on Steam Store. This is an active collaboration, because you figure I want to make it to where the game is configurable, or it's about getting the pandemic in the rebuild to where it's your ideal zombie monster infestation. But the Pengu virus, by all intents and purposes, is like the Resident Evil virus, where it modifies and changes any biological device to fit its needs. But in the grand scheme of things, I understand that there are people that just want to play Resident Evil, like the earlier Resident Evils, or maybe not that many crazy monsters, like 28 weeks later kind of stuff. So those are things that we're looking at, and we'll set the foundation of that with the custom game options going into later in the week to going into next week, and then we'll just have to adjust accordingly. I just want to make sure. Can YouTube hear me? Oh no, I can't hear me. Okay, I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong bar. I'm super conscious of that ever since someone said they couldn't hear me for 5 minutes one day. So here, there's the bar. Okay, so then just keep that in mind. These are all things that we're looking at as we get into introducing the island hopping, as we're introducing more complex design. That was why we did HMB, or Half Moon Bay, because it allowed us to drill down into the base bones or the base aspects of Pandemic that matter the most, and then flesh out those systems. And then as we go, we can iron out and add more nuance of how do the infection spread when you destroy the bridge. So let's say you do I Am Legend and you destroy that entire bridge. They need a way of getting to the mainland, but it needs to not be like fucking whack-a-mole. Because as it stands right now, when you play the rebuild, I've heard people get fucking pissed, where it's funniest shit ever, because I'm the one that knows how the stats are working and how the numbers are working, but I'm playing with people on the normal build. Here, I'll invite Efren so we can talk about his map too. And one of the biggest things was we need to add some limiters going into next week, so it doesn't feel like whack-a-mole, because you figure you'll destroy a pod in HMB over here, and then in 15 seconds, an evaluator from this pod over here is going to be like, wait, there's somewhere I could build. Build a builder in 15 to 30 seconds and replaces that pod. So the only issue is that there needs to be a longer delay, that when a pod is destroyed, we mark that off limits for maybe a minute or two to give you time to get resources into that area to lock it down. Because the biggest thing is that it's an advancing war front, and that's the biggest shift that we have to push for the game, where it's okay, let's say that you land a team here, and then you clear it out, and then a team pushes here and a team pushes here. Well, if you don't get these pods here, they're going to evaluate the respread here. So you have to basically lock down this position, remove older guard towers and areas that are on the fringes, rotate your turrets into this position, and then keep the front advancing. So as this team secures this area, we'll use a different color. Then the idea would be is that you rotate some of the turrets that are in the bottom green zone, and you put them here, 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 and here. That's your new front. And then the idea is that you have to balance out your advances and make sure that like you're locking down the key positions, because that was another thing that I saw. People would run in with the helicopter and then not expect them to rebuild. You can't come in with the helicopter and then not expect a zombie infestation that has thousands, if not millions of people to respread if you don't have a plan for what comes next, which is unreasonable thinking. So what I need to do is increase the timeout period, and then it's up to the player to have a plan. Yes, we're gonna send in a kill team of Apaches and Blackhawks and Little Birds. Great. What are you gonna do after that? Because if you leave it alone for a couple minutes, they're going to respread into the zone, and you just played whack-a-mole, and you just fooled yourself. So,
What's planning?
well, I guess, but that's the biggest thing that we have to basically incentivize on players. Because I watch people play the game all day. I'll sit on Discord and just chuckle to myself as I'm programming, and I'll write down notes in my notebook, and I'll unmute every once in a while and talk to people, watching them get their cheeks clapped. It's just the highlight of my week, watching people get destroyed by my AI. Yeah.
See, that's why I always go for the infected. I always support the infected.
Yeah, that's Phoenix's job. He's a fucking turncoat.
Because
the game was rigged. He was already on their side from the beginning.
Phoenix.
That's why we put that activity log in, so he wouldn't fucking troll people.
See, that's why I always came up with the quote, it's always Phoenix's fault.
Correct. Is he here? Oh, he's here.
I believe he is. Yeah.
So anyway, like that's the thing though, where we're going in that conscious direction where you're gonna want to separate your zones into like actual subgrids, where you're like, okay, I'm in charge of this. If you're playing by yourself, great. You pause the fuck out of the game. You take your time. You plan things out. You draw on the mini map, and you come up with an order of operations execution. If you're playing with players, that's the really interesting part, because then you can delegate areas of responsibility. Where like Ford and Fenrir last night were in charge of air logistics. So they were coming in with the Apache and the Blackhawk and the Little Birds with the Osprey. And if someone was getting their ass whooped, then they would come over from the carrier over here, get the team out, and then pull them back to a safe area, a fob, somewhere on the map. So like I was doing it every once in a while when they couldn't find someone. I'd be like, hey, give me the VTOL. I see some operators on the ground in that area of HMB. Let's get over there. Let's get them out, get them resupplied, because they need ammo, they need healing. And then you form this logistics chain, almost like when you're playing Arma, which I know a lot of people play Arma here, and like that kind of stuff where it's beautiful. It's like that kind of level of communication and teamwork is just like amazing in terms of like when I'm sitting there watching people play and they're talking and they're like yelling at each other and they're having a good time. Maybe not stealing each other's units, because that's when it gets kind of toxic. But you figure it's amazing. In terms of basically, as I've seen the game evolve when we got the first initial pandemic mode on HMB to what we have now. So that is going to be the conscious direction that I'm going into, and I'm just kind of itemizing it here because we're already on this map. It's kind of self-explanatory on HMB of what I'm getting across. Now, what I will do is I'm going to be talking to Efren about potentially adding and slicing up the zones more on HMB. Because now that we'll talk about this, but you figure now that we have the system in for Legacy. In Legacy, there was a system where if there was a sock here, and then they built a pod here. I mean, that's a bad color. And they built a pod, say, here and here, that would start to leak or take resources away from your zone. And it was a Legacy. We probably brought it back in this version. So the idea is it incentivizes you to keep your zones clean. It incentivizes you to actually, there's a repercussion for not doing your job. In terms of basically, like, if you don't do your job, you're going to be reliant on kills for income if you sit in that little base in the corner of your zone and don't do anything. So we're going to have to redraw the lines on HMB now that mechanic is in, and shrink some of the zones by about a quarter. and break them up into more reasonable, itemized chunks. Because that was something that I was talking to with some of the people on Discord a couple days ago. We were doing, I think it was Bob the Builder Hawkins, but he was bringing it to my attention, and I agreed with that
Bob.
because it was like one of those decisions where it's like, yeah, you're right. Now, if that system's in play, some of those zones are unrealistic for you to gain stewardship of in the early parts of the game. Because if we give the player too much money, then they're going to shit out Little Birds and Black Hawks and all this other stuff in the early parts of the game and then just roll Chelsea. And we know the Apache and other super units are not limited for your enjoyment and fun. When it comes down to basically when we get the ground vehicles in, then at that point we're working on the doctrines. And then you're going to actually be able to have, like, you're not going to be able to get the Apache on day zero. You're going to have to work for it by allocating doctrine points, similar to Company of Heroes, similar to Sins of a Solar Empire, too. So they're purely there in the playtest, so we can get some raw data. You guys can have fun, try out all the units, and we're not holding content potentially that's done that you guys can just jump in and give us some early feedback information. And then when we get to the point of implementing doctrines, we'll gate it. Of like the Apache is towards the air doctrines. Some of the Little Bird weapons and some of the Black Hawk weapons are in the airborne doctrine. So you don't get everything from the get-go, and it's not instant gratification in terms of like everything is unlocked from the get-go. So it's like everything is just easy mode. Because as Chelsea gets stronger by the day, you need to have a system that's limiting your power. So you would immediately just ram a Black Hawk up her ass with like 5 of them in the first day, and then she's just fucked. So it's one of those things where it's going to be a balancing act, a juggling act, as we give that escalation of players back in. Because one of the most utmost things of importance to me is getting the what?
Please never say Black Hawk.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. I know what you're thinking. PG-13. We're on Steam too. So you figure anyway. One of the biggest things for me is that. So let's effort. Do you have anything you want to add to this map that you've been working on before I move on to what Dimitri's been doing? Because we have a lot to go through today. Yeah.
Oh man. I mean, the one thing I was most concerned about, which we got in working, was the bridge. I mean, the nav seems to be going well now. So from here on out, it's just detail work, and it should be ready fairly soon. Hopefully within like the next week.
Damn.
So the streets are in. Now it's just time to put in all the sidewalks, and then of course doing the final models and textures for the bridge parts.
Okay. Right on.
So it's coming along. I mean, I think at this point, even if you just wanted to have them go in there and play on that crude ass map.
Oh, just put like a beta tab or and just let them know like, hey, like it's still a work in progress, but it's something new you guys can at least play, and that way it's more reminiscent of what they're used to, what they bought the original OG for, which was basically Treasure Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in a state where people can traverse the map and mess around in it, but there's still a lot of detail work to be done. Like I've already got like a bunch of the buildings in place. I'm playing around with other spaces to see what else I want to fill it in with. But yeah, it's just detail and nav cleanup from there, and it should be ready to go.
Groovy. So we'll have to play that by card. I know the programmers are over encumbered right now with like the amount of bugs and stuff we're running into. But because realistically, let me think, what would that entail from a gameplay standpoint to get this map in your guys' hands sooner rather than later? Hold on.
Well, then the zones got to be put into
setting up the Chelsea spawns, the blocking volumes. The mini map generation, and then basically we would have to have someone stencil over the mini map so people understand these areas are non-playable. Like the Angel and the San Francisco are non-playable areas. So then that way they don't really think that they should be able to go there, but they can't. And then we'd have to close off that bridge. And then that would be it. So technically it's probably a day or two of work, but we have a lot of shit on our plate right now. So what I would say is we'll give it that week. Going into we'll give it to like next podcast. We'll see where we are, and then we'll reevaluate in terms of our workload if we can get it out sooner. Now, my plan was Halloween, so we have more time to basically not like you're doing too much. You're running around all over the place. You can't prioritize shit. Things fall through the cracks. Things aren't done correctly. X, Y, and Z. So because this map is it's a new map. New bugs, new issues are going to present themselves. Just look at the verticality on this map. RTS games, if you notice, avoid verticality like the fucking devil. because it introduces complexity that balloons in terms of basically like if you ever noticed that all the RTS games you guys play typically don't have anything beyond small little slope inclines, and that's it. Maybe 10 feet at most, 15 feet at most, like Company of Heroes and all those other games. And it's only modders that do it. But then typically something breaks or their AI malfunctions because it's really, really hard to plan and account for all the variations of gameplay that can occur and the line of sight and the fog of war issues that present themselves just when it comes to this. Think about StarCraft. At most, there's like 2 or 3 heights of verticality, and then they're done. That's it. Because it's a complex thing to tackle. So this map on its own is going to bring issues in terms of the fog of war, which I think we might have fixed some of them last night with the guard tower logic that me and Derek were working on at like the tween hours of 6 a.m. this morning. So we might have already resolved it, but it's this map in its own is going to be a field test because remember also when it came to the pathfinding in the Unreal Engine and pathfinding quarries, think about the buses in Calypso. So you figure this map is going to definitely bring new pains and woes as we basically work through complex pathfinding in video games like this. And then, ideally, whenever all this is said and done, we'll get Calypso ported over, but that's a low priority right now. So just bear in mind, all of our effort and time is going into this, getting this area here playable, and then Angel Island's technically done. The other thing that's needed from us, me, and Derek, is the time to implement a mechanic and systems through Leviathan, and for the way for Infected to get to this island without the Leviathan. And then from there, the next logical step is the bridge destruction, and then San Francisco North is fair game. So it's going to be a layered rollout as we're working on the Ajaxes, as we're working on helicopter and other bug fixes. So keep in mind, temper your expectations. We'll update you guys as we go. You know what I mean? In terms of transparency. In terms of why we're doing certain things and how we're doing certain things and what the decision process that goes into them. Yeah. So you figure anything else you want to add for that effort before we move on to the next section? Any other fun tidbits?
Nope, I think covered pretty much everything.
And if you guys have any questions for Efren, for the level design, for the modeling, for what's going into like this process for these areas, feel free to save those questions and put them at the end for the Q&A because he loves being talked to. Please talk to Efren. So you think, yeah.
There's one more thing though. The tunnel, dude. I mean, like the lower level, that would be awesome for like third person. I don't know. I know we talked about that not being accessible, but
the only problem with that tunnel,
I mean, there's room for cool.
My only concern, and I'll voice this again in front of everyone else, is like if I spawn in right now, let me just bypass those errors. Again, this level hasn't been vetted by a programmer yet, so there's some assets that were migrated over from Legacy that need some finessing. The streetlights aren't hooked up to the current day and night system, so their delegates have been broken for knowing when to turn on and when to turn off. So when it loads in, I'll show you guys what my concerns are. I think that the bottom section of the bridge should be completely blocked off, like a bunch of traffic cars and a bunch of things that invalidate it, so you can't go there, because in an RTS game, it just doesn't work. Here, let me just see if I can find my mouse. So you can see.
I like the whole tunnel idea.
Yeah, but look at this. You can't control anything in there. Look at this. This is horrible. Unless we added like a divinity level sin, which is additional engineering and design, like you figure, like there's no clean way, because how the Oakland Bay Bridge works in real life is you have these 2 slices, and then one goes under and one goes right. I think.
Well, I was seeing it more as like a kind of no man's land where only the operators can go into.
No, because it would introduce too many issues with the pathfinding and the AI. Because then you figure then RTS players are going to want to go down there, and we don't want to segment the game like that. If one party can go, all parties can go, is what I feel like. So in this case, this under area should just be for visual design and authenticity, but it should be blocked out, it should be closed off, and it should be inaccessible. And that the main area that is what everyone transits on is the upper. And when the upper breaks, the lower breaks by default. So then that way, a little bit of simplification there. We have to make some technical, or I guess you can say concessions to gameplay to ensure that everything works and functions, because we can't do real life in video games we know what happens there. You get a lot of issues and performance and other stuff like that. So we have to make some kind of technical, some gameplay concessions to keep the game flowing for it primarily being an RTS game. Is that like for even this right here is kind of bad because like you figure you can't see through this mountain. So we're gonna have to like it's gonna be kind of weird to have combat in this tunnel. I don't know. What do you guys think? If am I over scrutinizing this, over analyzing this? Because you figure, I feel like just having to move a camera through this tunnel is horrible, and that we're going to have to probably implement some kind of system, a basic system like Divinity Original Sin, where it only bleeds through this mountain when you zoom in, or something like that. But I think that this is going to be an experiment. This is going to be basically trying to figure out the best way of accomplishing our long-term goals of getting it back in alignment with what the real-world version of San Francisco looks like, so that it's done, it's finite, and we don't have to change it anymore. Yeah, because So we'll come back to that. We're gonna have to wait. We gotta go.
I personally feel like you're kind of
Tell me
overthinking
more.
a little bit.
Elaborate.
Well, the reason why I think so is think of the value of having that little underbridge area
Sure.
being traversable, right? It not only shortens the run distance if someone, say people are stuck on that side and they're getting surrounded, they can go up the bridge, they go up onto the bridge and through the tunnel to get away, right? But could you imagine being stuck in a tunnel with infected coming from both sides?
Or you have to get a helicopter on there, or you're just dead.
Like that would honestly be pretty damn cool to watch, as you know, you see traces coming out of the tunnel as infected just file into it. I think it would be pretty entertaining. It would add that element of suspense, really, if you think about it. Because people are going into that tunnel and you don't know what the infected are going to do. Are they going to flood into the tunnel and use it as a bypass to reach your base on the other side?
I don't know.
I have
to think about the technical aspects of it too.
Because
the biggest problem is that do share your opinions in chat, because YouTube is just ghosting right now. They just stare intently. And then Discord, feel free to drop your feedback too, in terms of like what y'all think about that. Because you figure, to me, from a gameplay standpoint, I feel like it introduces oddness in terms of the camera placement. I mean, I guess if people want to take that path, they can, and then they can just set up checkpoints and guard points where, like, let's think about it this way: civilian evacuation. Because you figure the other aspect is when you factor civilian evac, when that gets re-added in later in November or December, then you're going to have to worry about the logistics of buses going under and over. So it's like, fuck. There's a lot of moving parts. Because you figure with this new setup, you could have a logistical chain where you're just evacuating everyone off the mainland. And then you have your evacuation stations on the center plateau, and you're just pulling a massive amount of buses, and you're bussing them out to basically cross the bridge, come over here to a helipad, and then be evacuated to the LHA-6 over there, or wherever you have it off the coast. So it's one of those things where it's like, having that upper and lower, I don't know, I just feel like it might be too much. Let me see what the people are saying. Let's see, what are they saying? Yeah, I hear what dudes are saying, but it's like it's gonna be tedious because think about the building, think about the camera, think about the claustrophobicness. I mean, I guess the simplest way of doing it is we could tag these and have a key, like in City Skylines, where you could toggle visibility on bridges. Or I don't know, it's kind of tedious. It's one of those things where, like, I need to think about it, I need to marinate on it. Let's open up the discussion that people want to talk about this in the Q&A. Like, come on, voice, like, talk about. We'll save that for a discussion, because this is a rabbit hole for, like, let's keep the podcast going, and then save your ideas, save your feedback. I'm gonna read it right now as we're going, and then when we get to the end of the Q&A, hit me with it. I'll bring up the map again. We can talk about it. We can discuss it. I can go into my technical reasons why I want to avoid it, and then we can kind of have a discussion there from a community standpoint to game developers. So this map is beautiful. This map is coming along. It's getting there. You guys are going to have something to play by the end of the month. So then the next thing is If I can remember the meaning of mapping. This one. It's loading. Hold on. My processor probably hates my guts streaming and doing this. So the biggest thing about this map is small little details here and there. Dimitri has been mostly working with the Michael and with Derek to get the helicopter set up, get them skinned, get them situated. So you'll notice some small little details here and there. Small little asset improvements and like little small micro detail has been coming in. He's very meticulous. He's very artisty, if that was a word. Well, the idea is he's all about like authenticity of what he does. So I fight him on it all the goddamn time for timelines and schedules. But like putting in like the details on the outside windows, putting in the carvings on the walls, not doing it as normal maps, but using nanite for like the actual like carvings and those little things. That's all just modeling and everything else. So that way he can get that sub detail and that deco to where when you come to this hub, you can truly appreciate the craftsmanship of what goes into every pixel. So it seems mundane. It seems like it really doesn't matter. But in the grand scheme of things, in terms of basically just artistic liberties and just kind of getting everything to where like this is an area that's going to stand for a long time, in terms of like this is going to be the hub for the rest of the game's lifetime. Ever. So it needs to be done. It needs to be pretty. It needs to be a good golden standard of the visuals and the fidelity and the Unreal Engine that you could hit. And then obviously you have a more simplistic, empty version for the RTS. Now he has to fix this. This is the warden's office, i.e. Wu's office on the story, or the campaign. And that there's some growing pains in terms of basically when this island was blocked out, he's going to have to pull this out and maybe adjust some of the areas to make this area a little bit wider. He's running into issues of the building not having enough space in the center canvas when he built the interior out. So, like, this is like little prison warden rooms, and then you have the side rooms here, basically like when the prisoners would go to talk to, like, the family members would come. Then that's the different areas here and whatnot. So, like, you figure he's just kind of going through and being Dimitri. The extreme amount of detail and attention to detail he does in the vehicles is what he's basically doing on the hub. And this room is kind of the golden standard of what we're going to be doing to kind of populate the other layers and the other sections of the base. We did this as a quick mock-up to kind of demonstrate a proof of concept of what we're building towards when it comes to operator to RTS joint communication. And I mentioned this briefly before, but when we had the time, we're going to be going back to this hub as a little polish pass and putting in some people that walk around and talk. Paying some voice actors to run around and just kind of put some miscellaneous chatter. And then at the same time, giving it a feedback loop. Or like Helldivers. Those TVs are here for a reason. So we want to basically have a feedback loop to what you're doing in your recent pandemic games. Have like pre-recorded audio things that play. So that was an idea that me and Durvar talked about years ago when Helldivers first came out. But the previous hub would not facilitate that. So like, okay, let's say you say, fuck operators. Fuck the developers are putting it in. We get that all the time. Is what it is. And you figure, let's say, for instance, you're in this camera. And you're just chilling. You can hear your reports of what you've been doing in the world in your last pandemic game on the screens. So we'll want to get some VO recorded. We want to get some general barks put in. Some like teasers of what's coming down the line as the game grows. As it gets bigger, so we can invest in the game in terms of basically like the small little things we could do for immersion, for storytelling reasons, to tease the campaign, that kind of stuff, to build a catalyst or like the framework of everything to come later down the line. That's very important to me is the framework and spending the time to kind of build out that foundation. So like this right here is the same thing. What we want to build towards the conscious direction of when an RTS player is choosing like what we're doing, where we're going, and how we're doing it, it would show a map here, and it would show a map here. So RTS players and operator players can coordinate around the map and kind of plan things out and have a communication, have a dialogue. So, yeah, those are all things that they're kind of here for blocking. And then when I get the resources and the time, because we're 2 programmers, and right now we're primarily focused on pandemic, we'll slice that up. Like when things calm down, when we're not like ride or die for like trying to get all the pandemic systems back in, get the vehicles in, maybe around the time of civilian evac, we could take a week or so, implement those systems, and then get on the civilian evac and whatnot, because that kind of stuff. So these are all things that we're talking about, things that we're discussing, things that we're building towards to basically get the game that I envision as the game director in y'all's hands. So that's when it comes to this island, what's going on. Now I'm going to jump over to some test maps. So we're going to load into my test AI map. Oh, right. I think Derek renamed that one. Okay. Let me just find it. It was called... Actually, no. This is a good test. We'll go into this one. So what I've been working on was, this is an issue that's plagued the game for fucking years, is that you figure you get that shit where the Juggernaut and some of the infected would just kind of dance and just kind of act kind of weird when they were attacking your base. And there's still some instances that we discovered last night with Hawkins and Ford that still occur. So it's one of those things where like you figure I need to kind of get into the nitty gritty and improve that. There is an issue that we're looking into for the wall building as well, where sometimes they go to the other side, and that's something that I'm going to be working on going into this week, is fleshing that out. That was the reason why I did that micro click there, to basically, because a quarter of them would have went around the other way. So we're working on that pathfinding logic and improving that, because it's annoying. So you figure, let's just have them build this wall. I'm going to build a quick base, and I'm going to demonstrate what's going on behind the scenes. So let me just let this build up for a second. So you can see that little sphere that's being generated. So that's what we call a center centroid. And when you're playing the rebuild, you'll notice this little thing appearing, and then you'll notice those little debug boxes, and then you'll notice that red box. So this is for me. So when you guys are reporting the AI or being retarded, you could give me pictures and videos that show me in a moment's glance, what are they thinking? Why are they thinking it? What is going on? Because you figure Krieg and other people last night, I think we played the game for 8 hours yesterday on Discord, on and off, between different groups of people, just trying to do bug hunts, trying to figure out where the game is fun, where it fails, and where it succeeds, you name it. So you figure it's a lot. It's just basically just kind of building a game. So, like you figure, as I build these two structures, you're going to notice something. Is the centroid is going to slowly but surely move into the center. A centroid is the center position of your base. It estimates the key point that if we hit that point, we cripple the base. And that just by sheer coincidence, you're going to run into secondary casualties by the CERC and other people rushing in to defend said base. So, as I build this structure, it's going to skew the centroid by an average vector analysis to basically see it move down more. So, like, if I go over here and I build some garrison tents, let me put on... Oh, that was another thing I snuck in this week, too, was I got that system in for y'all, so you could do the landscaping toggle, because I know the Patreons were going to burn me at the altar had I not added that in any sooner, because I playtest with them almost every day. And again, you don't have to be a playtester or Patreon to play with me. If you see me on Discord, join the room. Don't be a dick. But let's have a good time. Let's talk about the game. Let's talk about your concerns in X, Y, and Z. It's very chill. I'm very chill. I don't give a shit if you want to have a conversation. A lot of people on Steam will be like, I don't like this. And then I ask them to come on Discord and they ghost me. And I'm like, okay, you didn't really care. So you figure one of the biggest things for me was getting this centroid set. Oh, there we go. Perfect. So you can see an attack party has been formed to kill me. And that attack party has designated these walls for destruction. Then once they destroy this wall, they're going to not attack the other walls and move towards the center centroid, because they feel that if they were to destroy that one purple wall and then move to that center centroid, boom, Bob's your uncle, you're going to get catastrophic meltdown in the base, everyone's dead. And by sheer coincidence, that's what would happen if there were enough people, because these assaults and these guard towers and your layered bases are going to basically do their thing. Now, in this case, though, they all died in the end because I hit one blow up guy and it killed everyone. We're probably gonna have to nerf infected damage to maybe make it like 20%, 40%, because that's just a fucking meta at this point. You hit the one blow up guy and everyone goes pop the weasel. Why are they doing that? That is interesting. I will have to record this. Well, this is already recorded. I'll have to look into that. But you figure it's one of those things where like that is definitely the meta. Is we're gonna have to tone down those blow up guy explosions and have if you hit an allied unit, there's a damage reduction because it's just too easy. Like it's a good idea on paper, but there's some collateral damage. But now it's just becoming outrageous in terms of how easy it makes the game. Now, what I'm gonna do for
Yes.
it was outrageously wild. Like it just made the game like everyone. What the meta was: put your snipers on, kill the special infected. The snipers kill the blow up guys. 3/4 to half of the attacking party is now dead. So that will be changing on Monday. Sorry, not sorry. So what I'm going to do now is slow-mo 5. Yeah, I'm gonna slow-mo 5.
The
What do you
spinners
think?
need to. The spinners need their
Yeah, they
range
do for
increased.
projectile targets. So I think that pod is trying to hit my location, and the slow-mo is dilating the camera speed. So you can see, this is the perfect example. You can see in this example is that this is a new zone card that we ported in this week. And it's akin to the Legacy, tuned up a little bit better, smaller, looks more visually appealing, works better with operators, so the operators aren't like, my God, my eyes. That SpongeBob meme, that was the old fucking game build last week. Where it was like that fucking, literally. So, like, it's one of those things where we got that situated, and the infection level is now based, is a percent of the amount of pods in that zone. So the infection level is a representation of basically like every pod adds 20%. So as they get 4 pods, 5 pods, it uncaps the infection level. 1 pod is capped at 20% max infection. 2 pods, 40, 3, 60, 4, 80, 5, 100. But after 5, anything allows overfill. Where popping 1 pod is not going to reduce the infection level. You have to pop 2 if there's greater than 5 pods in that location. So it makes it one of those systems where they can kind of double down how you can like overpopulate. You can build extra garrison tents to provide overpopulation. They can do the same thing for making it to where you can't immediately drop the infection level. And the infection level is now dynamic. It is based off of a sliding scale of essentially, it assumes that in the beginning, the infection spread is always going to be slower. It's going to take longer for them to kill people. But then as the surviving population decreases, and it skews in the other direction, then it's going to have rapid growth, rapid expansion. Where like if the infection is allowed to fester for days at a time, it's gonna just roll on through. So you can see in this example, I'm just gonna destroy this guard tower because like you can see it's the meta going on again. I fixed the blow up guy logic, so legitimately they would this is gonna be a bad demonstration. I'm gonna have to patch that out tonight. Fuck it. So okay. Oh my God.
Ooh.
See what I mean? Yeah,
Yeah,
see what I mean?
wall.
They went for that wall, but the problem was the blow up guys killed everyone behind them because they blow up. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to lower the damage to maybe like a max amount of 20 or 30%. Something manageable instead of this. This is weird. And it makes the game too easy. But you figure
Maybe make it so they stop and let the blow up guy take the advance first.
that would leave other people open to being gutted. So we would have to add a macro AI technically where they would wait around the corner. But then the problem is that the blow up guys and the standard infected work together as a team. They're all there to basically standard infected are there like that scene from Helm's Deep. You have all of the ads that are distracting the protectors from being able to notice the one guy with the flare or the lit torch to blow up the bomb in the deeping wall. So the idea is the same thing here. Whereas like you need the distractions, you need the bloat and the excess. So then that way players that aren't paying attention or don't have their units on their proper fire modes of special targets. Because theoretically, you could just put snipers on this roof in special target mode. and they will just zone in only special infected, and they will just narc them so hard. So it's one of those things where that's going to be an interesting balance change that I'm going to have to make potentially tonight or on Monday, depending on how I'm feeling of like burnt tiredness. But you figure we'll get to that. So like you figure it's one of those things where that's going to have to change because you figure you can see right. Who are you? Oh, that was a husk that was like flying over. Okay, so let me go ahead and let me see. I guess I demonstrated the concept of it. I'm just gonna actually have to like play a real session because like you figure the juggernauts are kind of sitting over here guarding the bases. So that was the other thing is that we limited it. Let me see if I can show it. There's Chelsea. Oh, it's right. There's a very low percentage chance that juggernauts spawn on day 0. You have to have the most unlucky person on the planet Earth to have a juggernaut spawn on day 0. I made it like practically no chance at all. So when day 1 rolls around, the juggernaut will spawn in, and then what he does is he'll basically assign himself the tasks based off of whatever they deem is most critical to the war effort for that faction. And this is basically an expansion of the system of having heroes in a game. The lieutenants would go off of that system. Other factions, like dynamic civilian groups, could have heroes or other units where they would rope themselves into actions. So the idea is that we built the infection system in a way where it is expandable to basically be able to roll out to when we get the dynamic civilian groups. It's like maybe a couple of days of cleaning up and organizing and some changing some variables here and there. But we can roll that system out and take how they defend, how they build in a zone, how they spread into other zones, and apply that to dynamic civilian groups. So in a way, we already have a lot of the groundwork laid for dynamic civilian groups, and it's more so just working on their individual AI. So you can see in this example, they're expanding a hell of a lot slower than they used to last week, where literally they would just have expansive rapid growth. Now they are clamped by the day, because like by the end of day 1, they would own half the map. So by the end of day 2, they'll own half the map, quarter of the map, depending on the war effort, how things are going. By day 2 and 3, they will own the map if they're uncontested. So I doubled everything. So now you have a lot more time, breathing room. You have some more initial prodding attacks that occur that aren't as aggressive and aren't as deadly. Where like we were sending like 200, 150 infected to your base, like a Zerg rush, as the first attack, and that was just 1-2 punching, KOing everyone. Like I can't tell you how many comments I got on Steam of like, this is just too hard. Like, how do I play this? Like I can't play this. And only the most like diehard people that play the game all the time were the only ones that were actually doing fine. Or if we had like a metric shit ton of people in a room where it was like 3 or 4 people and everyone had a role and a job, and you guys were like in charge of the assaults. You're in field, you're building field fortifications, you're doing the engineers, you're doing scouting runs on the little birds, get people on the little birds and intercept them, wither them down, try and run distractions. So you really had to go above and beyond. Now, mind you, that's going to come back in the mind of custom game options. We toned it down just for the sake of sanity of people being able to play the rebuild. But as we get to the point of polishing up and finishing up some of these items that are on our list, then we'll finally be able to implement custom game options and the radio music. So let me see if I can grab some helicopters and show you what Michael's been working on and what Dimitri has also been working on. So we're going to grab some helis. Yeah, that's good enough. So Michael's been going in and looking at the real world specifications of these vehicles and setting up their flight models. How do they turn? How fast can they turn? How fast do they move? You know, X, Y, and Z. And just kind of getting all of that situated. So then that way, there was a good foundation for like, you buy a Sharon for its speed and transport capability and its weapons. He's also been going through and rebalancing every weapon in the game for the helicopters as of this morning. Every helicopter has been rebalanced and tweaked based off of that thread up to the minute. I'm talking to you guys, coming to a consensus and figuring out what makes sense and what doesn't, what he needs to hold on to get more data, and what people are saying based off of the analytics of how many people are saying certain things. because we can't make a decision in the moment for every single thing people say. Or we can look at the data, look at what people we're seeing internally, and talk to people, play it ourselves, and then come to a conclusion of what needs to change and what doesn't need to change, because we need to kind of make sure we don't do a knee-jerk reaction and then make something unilaterally the new meta. So, like, you figure every helicopter has kind of been having their physics adjusted, having their movement speeds adjusted. They have a higher, what's it called, a sight range. Like the scout drone has the sight range that Legacy had, where it's like double now over the previous version. So it's double of every other helicopter. The Shawnee got its buff this morning based off of the playtests and the recordings that we did last night with people on Discord. Michael was sitting, I think he's on vacation right now for his weekend visiting his people. But you figure he was watching from his laptop while we were streaming on Twitch and basically writing down notes and pushing updates from his laptop for data assets to basically change the balance. So that got put in. I have to quickly do the build for the playtest we're going to do later tonight for anyone that does want to jump in, because then he's going to need more data. He's going to need to see how things play out. He needs to know if what his conclusions were correct or wrong. So that's something that we'll aim to rectify and do the research later tonight. I guess Chelsea just destroyed my aircraft carrier. Kawaii. The aircraft carrier was put in as it has a health bar. Technically, it's undestroyable because it's on the water. But when you put it in dev maps like this, obviously you're going to have problems because you figure Chelsea just walked over and killed it. That was the other thing, is we've been slowly but surely just kind of getting the table set, getting everything arranged to get it back in alignment with Legacy. So like, for instance, now the LHA-6 supplies gas, ammo, infection, healing like it did in Legacy. So now you can run logistics chains of, like, if you can't afford a helipad, you can literally just run out the gas and then do, like, forward. Last night, when we were doing our play sessions for testing the game, he would legitimately just run back to the carrier with his starting sparrows and his helicopters instead of spending the 6K on the starting helipad because we lost it, and basically just be able to land on this deck by pressing C, and then it would just keep his helicopter topped up. Gas, health, ammo, X, Y, and Z. Now, we are aware of an issue where sometimes the missile pods, the secondary and the treachery guns, are not being refilled. We are investigating that. We are trying to resolve that going into Monday, Tuesday. We're trying to figure out the outlying cases when it occurs, because it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens enough to where it's frustrating. So that is something that we're looking into and trying to resolve. There is another issue that we're looking into for the, I forgot to put the VTOL in. But the other issue we're looking into is obviously the Apache kind of does this weird floating sometimes when it lands. And then the other issue is the VTOL and some of the guns not always being accurately targeting. Sometimes they'll just kind of not target enemies. So we need to figure out that use case of bugs. Right now, as it stands, those are the two critical bugs that we're hunting down for the helicopters. Now, the other thing that I do want to say is next week, we're going to be squeezing in a mechanic and our system for the little birds, for operators, to where they can queue into repels, because that just has to happen. So the idea would be is that, and this is something that me and Derek worked on, we collaborated on this earlier in the week, is that if I put in a player character, and then I put it in multiplayer, if I can learn how to spell, pull the viewport over for the second client, if I can clip it. Thank you, Windows 11. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my operator and the host, and I'm going to get on that little bird. Okay, now I'm on the skids. Now the problem is right now is that this camera perspective is definitely going to need some tweaking, because it's kind of weird. It's something that we're going to have to polish up. But the idea is that if I put these other guys on the little bird, we fix the jitter and the desync that would occur as clients were moving. And we need to know if the numbers that we put in are good for, like, people that are on higher, like, across the seas, under the sea, like, Hawkins, where they're in, like, overseas in Germany. So we did get this in for clients and hosts. So now the operator can actively contribute. We need to block the camera shifting, kind of like what Wildlands and Breakpoint does. if we need to fix the camera perspective, because in some cases you can do this, which is weird, and it blocks the camera, we want to make sure that the operators are an active participant in every facet of gameplay. Whether it be repairing the helipad, we've had operators where they're repelling the helicopter as you're flying. We had operators that an RTS player will place down a structure, and then operator players will go to work building. So like operators can contribute to every facet of gameplay. Or the joint war effort across the spectrum. Where like last night I had an operator, I think it was Panda, where he was like, "Hey, place down those holograms. Cancel your engineer. I'll build them for you. That way you can get the engineer to build the guard towers. Just place down the holograms for me." Because right now the operators don't have a system like in Rust or Fallout to facilitate placing blueprints. They will get that long term. It's just there's a lot involved in that. So for right now, we don't want to get into that nitty gritty just yet, but it's something that we're looking at long term down the line closer to December as like a wish list kind of feature we want to sneak in there. So now operators can place blueprints and build bases autonomously with no human intervention. Yes, I know operators want to open doors and gates and change the lock status. We're looking into that. That's a wish list item. Right now, you'll have to rely on your RTS buddies to change door lock statuses from auto to manual to opening for you. We'll try and facilitate that when we can. It's just something that's on the docket, and we're gonna try and fit that in when we can. So that is something that we've kind of done and situated here. And then one other thing I want to show is that if I land the helicopter, actually, the other thing I wanted to show is that you're kind of left out if I tell them to repel. I wonder, you know what? Let me see what happens. I don't think anyone's actually tried this. Am I going to crash? Or is it going to push the operator out? I don't know. Oh, shit. Oh, looks like it's done already. Never mind. I lied. We did it already. Cough, cough. I guess we already did it. Okay. I guess that the garrison system, because of the way it was programmed, is just forcing the operator out. What I wanted to do was have it to where the operator could choose if he wanted to get out in a repel. Because that, hold on, let me check something, because that wasn't expected. I'm fucking kind of annoyed right now. What the fuck? Okay, so if I get in you, right now I'm in the skid where I can't shoot, so it pulls to like a Wildlands Arma type camera perspective. But I'm gonna we're testing this live, game design live. Sorry. So if I do this, and operator set, and the RTS player only chooses them. Oh wait, no, I can't do that because it's gonna get the pilot out. But if I unclick you, and then I do that, it will keep the operator in. If that's already done, then why would I have to change anything else? That just comes down to a communication between the RTS player is technically the steward of the helicopter. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Should we go as far as having it to where the operator can not be controlled by an RTS player so they can't be forced to repel? Or should we go as far as making it to where like we just leave this alarm for the time being? Would you guys like that? What do you guys think about that? I'm kind of almost going to leave that alone. Because I kind of like that. Because the idea is that an RTS player is kind of just has to pay attention to what they're doing. But then that also is a troll mechanic if people keep repelling you out and the operator has no autonomy. Oh, I think Krieg wants to say something. Does anyone have any opinions on that? What do you guys think? For YouTube and on Discord. I know people are typing. Durvar, what do you think? Open the floor for discussion. Prompt or no prompt? I'm advocating for prompts. Maybe he's dead. Okay, he's dead.
I think a prompt would be ideal. Because
trolling,
as we experienced the other night, trolling. On top of that, people taking
because someone lost their helicopter.
Someone
lost their helicopter, and then within 5 fucking seconds, he lost everything. He lost $50,000 in helicopters, and then he immediately went to the other part of the map, and he was like,
straight down the drain.
"That's a helicopter." Takes it away and starts using it like it was his, and everyone's just like, "Come on, guys! Like you can't do that." If you want a helicopter, buy a helicopter or ask for the helicopter if you need it for something. So yeah, I kind of see where you're coming from. There has to be some kind of queue system.
If we are getting a queue system or a prompt for like vehicle usage, like what Digital just said in the Discord chat, if an RTS player is controlling a vehicle and they don't have time to take someone to where they want to go, and then refusing to get out of the vehicle, maybe we could have a lock on a vehicle where operators can't enter certain vehicles if set to be locked. That can carry them. On top of having a prompt, if you're being repelled to a different location, so there's two sets of people. One group's going to repel from the same helicopter, and then another's going to repel elsewhere. If that's something.
Let me think about that. 'Cause the base value. Let me marinate on that one. I like what you guys are saying. I just need to look at in terms of how to fit it into the feasibility of this next week, because like I've been saying this on Discord, but the next 30 to 60 days of the game is critical. It is the utmost important that we basically bang this all out and everything's done in a manageable, timely fashion in terms of getting everything out in the hands of the players. Because that way people can play it and kind of get it, and we can just kind of, set ourselves up for a good, solid Q1 in 2026. So let me think about that. I gotta talk with Derek. I gotta see what that would include for engineering, because you figure the garrison system as it stands right now is a fire and forget system. It literally just stores a struct, and that struct doesn't have an easy way of interjecting as it stands right now, because it wasn't programmed with that option to change it. If you change it, you give it a counseling move order, and then it just aborts the entire payload of struct of who's leaving and who's staying. That's what Derek was telling me when I talked to him a couple of days ago about it. But we never actually tested it for like the garrisoning directly, because no one even thought it was going to work. And I don't think a single person even tried it when we were playtesting yesterday. So it's a good thing that works, but now it presents another problem of the trolling aspect of griefing. But then the host would just jump in and kick them. So like, it also comes down to playing with people that aren't going to be dicks. So like, I might have to put this off for a little bit longer instead of just getting more of the base bug fixes and tweaks in, and then that just comes down to communication. But I'll talk to Derek and see if we can squeeze that in sometime this week. But as you guys know, our schedule this month is tight as fuck. Where like literally there is little room for new shit or like new things that weren't planned on the dossier. So let me get back to you guys on that one. But I'll run it up the chain of the Derek, and we'll theory craft it, and we'll figure out what we want to do there in terms of what we can execute on. Anyway, so the next thing is going to be, hold on, let me open up my log. Show that. Oh, right. I'll just show that now. So if I go to Rainmaker Alcatraz, I'll just show this really briefly. I know we were getting this. Oh, I don't want to open in multiplayer anymore. I know we were getting this piece of feedback pretty regularly, is that the operator recoil was like absurdly high. So we did put in a mitigator where when you're shooting crouched, it does lower the spread considerably. Michael still needs to go through and basically balance it out more so that it's configurable on a per weapon basis. You'll also notice that he snuck in a weapon for operators so that they don't feel like helpless children when a juggernaut comes to rear his head. He definitely did not set up the new class absolutely correctly. Oh, that was a crash. Where's that crash from? Let me save that. Reopen. Oh, you know what? Let me open the other version because my operator is probably malformed from all the shit I do to it in the editor. So I probably need to delete that because I don't customize and make operators in the editor. Michael's the one that kind of does that. So it might just be a case where essentially I need to delete that local operator because it's probably corrupted from all the stuff we've done internally to the operators. So if I go over here and I go to edit weapon loadout, he didn't name it correctly, they did add a grenade launcher to the operator for when you're countering the juggernaut, so you don't feel like a helpless child. He has to fix the reload and fix the crouching because it does that. The crouching was already fixed as I checked the patch notes, so I need to cook another patch. And the idea is that we were debating the M107, a small or a grenade launcher. We centered on the grenade launcher for the time being. And it's one of those things where we're going to need to, like, obviously just kind of add more operator weapons as the game expands, as we add more infected types, and just kind of push the progression of the operators as things go into the end of the year. Because, like, you figure as it stands right now, you don't even have to work for that gun. So there's going to have to be, like, that was the whole reason why we added the weapon proficiency system, where things need to be locked behind, like, proficiencies of doing certain things unlock certain types of weapons as a flow. So using SMGs unlocks more SMGs. Using a DMR unlocks other DMRs. Using a weaker version of the grenade launcher like a thumper or like a 1 to 2 shot simplistic grenade launcher would allow you to get the grenade launcher and then eventually the small and then eventually the javelin. So then that way there's a logical flow because a good majority of the weapons that are in RTS will eventually trickle into the operator and allow you to become like hybrid RTS TPS heroes essentially. So that's just something that we worked on, or rather he worked on alongside the bout. Oh, you can shoot through that. Let me just shoot. Yeah, okay. That's kawaii. Yeah, okay, I see what he did there. So that's just something that basically got worked on as well going into this week to just kind of flesh that out, get that situated. Let me check my notes. I went over the toggle landscape, but what I do want to show is reopen up the editor. And we're going to jump into the juggernaut or the little guy changes. And then I think that will wrap up this week for progress. And we're going to go into the Q&A, get y'all's questions, get your feedback. And then we'll stage for a playtest. I'm going to definitely nerf that blow-up guy's damage in just a moment as well. So just bear with me because I'm going to cook another patch. It's going to fix the grenade launcher crouching and put in all the fixes that you guys have been suggesting throughout the day to Michael that he's managed to put in already. And the Apache and the helicopter buffs. So it'll take at least 20 to 30 minutes to make those changes. But here, let me load into which will be the best map to demonstrate that. Ah, yes. So we will go to my, hold on. What? Hold on. Ah, this one. No, hold on. I gotta check the commit log. I think Derek renamed the map. Ah, no? Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. This is the other one I wanted to show for a simulation. That's something we've been working on. So Krieg showed us an exploit in the AI last night. And the biggest thing is now we're getting to a point where we have to take screenshots of people's bases when they're playing the game with us, or bases that are submitted to us with the AI malfunction and break, and then work out the issues and the kinks. So in this example, when I spawned the infected, one of the biggest things that we noticed when we were playing is that they would predominantly freak out and not know what to do when it came to attacking these turrets. And this has plagued the current build that is on public, is that they would dance in this area. They couldn't commit to a line of thinking because the problem is that the AI or the commander was telling them to attack a central point, but they got hit by something. I saw something else and I can reach that object, but I want to go to that object. So it was almost like let me make it bigger. It was almost like basically a jitter. And in this case, we had to change the AI along the idea where they would commit to the turrets. And we added in a threat system where they prioritize targets that are wounded and distance. They do distance and they do wounded checks now. and some extra invalidation checks that we did to make it to where eventually, when they overrun the turrets, they will understand the next feasible thing to attack are the guard towers, and they won't get hung up on the walls. Because that's what will happen on Legacy, is that they get hung up on the walls, or they get hung up in the rebuild, and they wouldn't be able to do anything. So you figure here, let me slum off 5 for the sake of time.
I love coming back from being gone for a while and then breaking the AI of base
Yes.
mechanics.
So you can see that in the rebuild from a couple weeks ago, from Legacy, they would not have handled that situation as gracefully in terms of how they chose to tackle the situation. They would have attacked the walls. Oh, this wall was just pissed me off today. I'm going to hit that wall. Even though there's a guard tower here. Sorry, a turret here and here. And a turret here and here. And guard towers here and here. Is that they made the conscious decision, it's too far to reach these 2 towers. We're going to die on the way. Let's just, if we're going to die, let's die during something that's going to help the person behind me. So the idea is they chose, okay, let's go for these 2 turrets. Now, there needs to be another improvement on this test map. Now, what should have happened as well is that some of them should have peeled off and made the conscious decision. We have to come up with an algorithm or a heuristic for this that basically would have been like, hey, it's nice to go around, but what if we destroy that one wall, open up a new front, and kill it quicker? And that's one of the things that we have to look into as another improvement to kill Krieg's bases, because fuck that guy. Like, literally, he builds like these Fort Knoxes. And so does Hawkins, where it's just kind of like, okay, we're literally going to use your bases to just kill everyone. Because your base, like, every time you make a new base, we're going to take a screenshot. We're going to recreate it in our editor. And then we're going to train the AI how to kill it. And then you make a new one, we're going to do the same thing. To the point where they understand and they understand how to make logical choices to accomplish their tasks. So, like, here, let me see if I can pull out one of Krieg's bases from last night. Where is it? What did you post that last night? Oh, you said it in DMs. That was right. So, if I open up this base and I pull it over, because we were in a share screen last night. And we were just playing the game after everyone got off, and we were just writing up notes in terms of things that we need to do. And this was Krieg's base that he was building. Let me zoom out a little bit. Where you figure he had his little like Fort Knox funnel. This is a lot of debug strings, so I apologize for that. But you get the idea is he had basically like a little like military checkpoint where you have like a little island in the center. And then you have the corrals. And then you have the turrets that are on the side here, but the AI would conceivably get to where those 2 assaults were, and then loop back and forth, because the centoid logic was saying I gotta get to that red diamond, but something just hit me, or I saw something, and I could reach that object, so I'm gonna go to that object. But wait, something else hit me. I should go get that object too. So the problem is that we needed to have a lockout system. And that system still needs improvement. I was brainstorming some ideas earlier when I was taking my dog out before the podcast today. So I'm going to have to theory craft those and implement them going into Monday as some other extra exceptions where the system fails. Because like last night, we fixed one version of it, but then Hawkins showed another version of it. So now I have to fix that on Monday for what Hawkins showed as another exploit or bug in the system where they misappropriate resources and they kind of bug out if you build these complicated mega bases. So those are just things that we're looking into, which is basically just kind of iron out. And you can kind of see the system in play. And this is actually another bug that Krieg brought to my attention, is that the centoid is not ignoring your player structures. I fixed that. Excuse me. After talking to Krieg and just kind of watching people play the game yesterday on Discord, where I was like, wait, why aren't they attacking those bases? Oh my god. The centoid is not properly externalizing or ignoring players built structures under certain cases when it gets super dense. So I added some additional validation, improved that, fixed it. Thank you, Krieg. Fuck you, Krieg. So it's one of those things where that should now, as far as I know, that is the one thing that did not break from Hawkins' game last night and where we played like at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. this morning for a couple of hours, is that we could not manage to break the centoid. So I'm going to have to see if anyone else can break it going into tonight, going into Monday, and then adjust accordingly based off of whatever occurs. Because you figure if the centoid breaks, the attack logic doesn't know what to do. Because they don't know how to break up your base into manageable chunks. And then they fall back on their macro or their like more simplistic AI, where there's not really like a director orchestrating them. And it's more of like right now. This is just the macro AI or like the lower tuned individual AI where they're just being stupid and they're just like, well, let's just destroy everything in sight because there's nothing that's hurting me anymore. So everything must go into fire sale. So let's just blow everything up, basically. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. They're kind of just iron out the kinks and get it to the point of being happy with the setup. Now, yes, we know I need to get Dimitri. We get some time to make a version of the explosion for Heskos and some of the more smaller structures, so it's not as bombastic. And so that's something we got to do. We'll get some kind of like VFX made where like this thing kind of like the sand explodes and some of the metal goes everywhere and it just kind of like collapses and folds in on itself. We're going to have to make some unique VFX for every object's destruction type. So that way we can just kind of get that to a point where it looks aesthetically pleasing and fits the case of where it's, where it is in the gameplay. Let me see if I'm missing anything. Check my notes. Then we can move on to the Q&A. Hold on. Oh, right. Let me just do one more thing. So I guess I could do it here. Or do we have the other map? No, that's the spitter projectile test range. Yeah, I would have to do it in this one. And then delete you. Delete that dot on the ground. Delete the walls. Set the scene. We'll do the builder first. So one of the things that I also cleaned up this week was the builder AI. He got a substantial nerf in terms of his health, his damage resistance, and just made him a little bit more reasonable to fight as an adversary because he was a little too, broken in the first implementation of him. So you can see already he's half health from just one concentration of fire. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to let him eat someone. So you figure right off the bat, you'll notice that he doesn't try and move away when he's trying to melee people. There was a bug with his AI where sometimes he would like run away while he was almost blood sucking you, and it was weird. So I fixed that bug, and I kind of just tuned up his AI, lowered the chance so he doesn't always try and blood heal you. He has a lower chance to blood heal you if he's not hurt. So if he's hurt, he'll steal blood from you to heal himself, is the idea. Now he's just kind of meandering around the map. So he's done. That's his demonstration of gameplay and showing the new balance because he was practically dead already. Now the next thing is the Juggy. So the Juggy still needs a considerable amount of work to get him to a point where I'm happy with him. Because you can see right now he's kind of pausing. I have to figure out what's going on with his logic chain. What the fuck? Hold on.
What did he just do? Did he bury his head?
No, he died. How did they burn through 22,000 health?
What?
Michael nerfed him way too hard. Oh, I know what that is. Hold on.
I don't.
Yeah, that's my
your
fault. That's
fault.
not for that. That is the subsystem. Hold on, I gotta think. Let me think 1 second. Okay, I'm gonna have to change that. I don't know why it has stewardship over that guy. So let's go to his AI controller. Let's go to his blueprint for his AI controller. Let's go to his C++. Oh. Yeah, I'll fix that later because Durva and I were talking about increasing the car throw range. There's the values right now that'll make everyone cry. Because I gotta increase his chance to throw and turn down his throw cooldown, increase his max range so that he can actually combat the helicopters because he just stands there and stares at you. Oh, it didn't open properly. Can I do this quickly, or is it better to show the video? Boom. Okay, that's what I can do. I can change that temporarily to 360 seconds for the sake of this demonstration. And then I'll have to work out that. Because typically, juggernauts are always under the command of a central AI. And if the system deems that something's wrong with them, it might kill them and save up population, and they despawn. Let's see what's going to happen. Is he going to act weird? Oh, shit, that's the other thing. I got to build his paths. He has a special path navigation. But that's why he couldn't move. So you figure his melee is still kind of crazy. We're going to have to be tweaking that up here and there and tuning it up. He's getting better, but he's still not there. Like you figure I fixed his focus issues. So he's a lot better at facing you from like the previous builds that I showed a week ago. But I'm still not happy with how he handles himself in terms of combat. There's a lot of micro freezes that occur where he thinks that he should throw a car instead of just getting in close. And he's waiting for a cooldown instead of just getting his hands dirty. So like right now, he's moving when he throws a car. Those small little bugs I need to iron out and fix up going into this week. So it'll probably be another couple of like 1 or 2 days to get to the point where I'm happy with him, like the little guy. But like right there, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Stop it. So you figure AI is one of the almost hardest things to program in a video game. So it's going to be a little bit of like back and forth as we iron out the threat analysis system. Like right there, what the fuck? So that was probably another montage interrupted his montage to where it canceled the anim notify that triggers the car to leave his hands at a sudden frame. So it's one of those things where I need to kind of like bulletproof up the code and see what's going on, add some debug above his head. So the idea is that like if a juggernaut breaks in a play session, or if a juggernaut breaks for someone in game, they can click on him, type in a console command, and then it would tell me or tell them what he's thinking. Take a screenshot, send that to me, send me a video, and then that way I can be like, oh, what the fuck? And then I can fix it. So that's what I'm going to be doing. The first thing I'm going to be doing this week on Monday is working on his AI, the debugging and the logging. So at any time I can select one, type that console command, and then I can know what he's thinking, what he's going to do next, what his cooldowns are, and what his last evaluations were. So I can be like, oh, he's stuck trying to throw a car. Oh, he's stuck trying to melee something. What's going on? So that would be the first step going into Monday. And then after I get that ironed out, then I'll move into, say, getting the fixing him. Because then I'll know what he's thinking, where his logic flow is breaking, and then execute and fix it. Just like I did the Build-A-Drone. So, like right now, like that pause was weird. And then we'll give him more objects to throw. It's just a low priority right now. Right now, he only throws the taxi car. But because technically every car in the level is in memory, we'll give him like 3 or 4 other cars to throw. Maybe give him some like hot dog stands and other stuff like that. They have smaller imprints just to make it a little bit more funnier. And just give him some things that just kind of like have a more like, I guess you could say, range. Right now, like I was talking to Durvar this morning when we were doing that playtest, is he doesn't understand the concept of tossing to reach a target on the other side of a wall. That's something else that I need to improve on his logic, because when he throws a car, it's ballistic. It's like terminal velocity of like from A to B. It's not like it's like straight. Like there's no. So like I need to. That's something else that I seek to rectify this week. So that way, like, I'll show you guys. Actually, we're gonna put Phoenix on blast again. So I want this to happen more often, where they understand that basically, if you don't, if you like, you have to pay attention to your surroundings. So like this video, for example, where like
It's a visual thing. Phoenix.
so we want that to happen where they, because that was luck. That was literally just Phoenix had the worst luck in all of Narnia, and basically he just happened to the Juggernaut in that moment saw someone over a thing, and he was just at the right height verticality to make the throw, to align the hit. But that's not good enough. What I want them to do is, let's say there's a wall here. My walls are retarded. And then he's over here, and he's like, well, these guys are hitting me. Who cares about the wall? I'm going to do this instead of this. And then it hits it hits the wall by sheer collision. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you see this. You still see this. Where he'll throw something, and then it hits something else that he intended. So I have to add some suggest projectile velocity code, which Unreal Tournament ironically perfected with their projectile code in the base Unreal Engine. So I just need to piggyback off of some native systems in Unreal Engine to simulate the throw and calculate the physics. So then that way he can understand what he needs to do, like someone throwing a ball in real life, how he needs to curve the ball to reach the target within his throw radius, his throw distance. So those are all things that basically I'm looking at to essentially improve his logic and make it to where they get situated. So someone asked on YouTube, what happened to the actor chicks that did the updates? Are they devs or just paid actors? I just realized I haven't seen any of them. Purely came down to budget. And then you figure it was budget, and then they the first one wasn't doing it anymore for anyone because she was moving careers. The second one had a kid. And the third one, we want to get another spokesperson or person for the game again to make it a more casual, because these are really deep dive, developer oriented discussions that not everyone's going to want to sit down for 2 hours and have a fireside chat. We need to still have our 5-minute TLDR, don't give a shit, tell me what happened this month kind of deal. So that's something that I need to kind of find another spokeswoman to do for the game later in the next couple of months, ideally, as things kind of calm down, as like a regular monthly roll up of what happened this month. So you'd have these, and then that girl would talk about what happened in the full month in a 5-minute summary. So that way people could get the best of two worlds. So yeah, that is something that I'm looking into, Spiffy. It's budget, and it's basically just more so like, it's more so budget more than anything. I think you figure it's just also finding someone at this time and day of like everything else going on. Like, we'll worry about that after co-op's done. I would say Christmas, I'll try and aim to get another spokesperson onboarded. We'll see. But that's generally something that I'm working on, and this is what I'm going to be working on going into Monday to terrify you in your sleep. So it's going to be great. Don't worry. In terms of making the Juggernaut fearsome. And then don't even get me started for Chelsea. I got sidelined with the bugs and the crashes and the balance changes and the other tweaks and other things here and there. So when I get to Chelsea, she's going to be worse than the Juggernaut. Walking into her is going to be death incarnate. Like, that shit you guys used to do before is not going to fly anymore. So just keep in mind, it's going to, again, I need to get the Juggernaut. I need to fix that bug I showed you that Krieg and Hawkins showed me. Well, I fixed Krieg's version, but Hawkins' version. I need to fix the variation that Hawkins showed me for attacking logic with Derek, either today or on Monday. And then I need to do the Juggernaut fixes. And then at that point, it's the any other critical bugs or issues that are pressing Monday, Tuesday, and then I need to get on Chelsea ideally around Tuesday, Wednesday, and round out the rest of the week on Chelsea's AI, and then finally get on the save system. Now, from Derek's standpoint, he's been working on the helicopters. Everything we showed today was just bug fixes, helicopters, fog of war, crashes, instability, bugs, you name it. Like you figure, we've been on a bug hunt where like most of our days are just bugs. Because as you do the rebuild, systems don't talk to each other correctly. They maybe have race conditions where you add this new system and then that cascades onto another system. It's just game design as a whole. Where changing one thing could indirectly influence other systems. Like an optimization you apply to the Fog of War could cause a crash in this variation of gameplay when a person's CPU is running too slowly because their frame rate dips below a certain amount. So it's like little variations here and there. We're hunting them all down, fixing them, and resolving them. And I would encourage people to continue posting on the Discord, on the Steam forums, tagging me. What do you call it? If you have like a balance issue, Michael, tag the hell out of him. If it's like something programming, like a bug or a crash or that kind of stuff, then put it inside of the escalation phase rebuild thread on Discord or put it on the bug reporting section. But please use the proper titles on Steam. Because like you figure, you have no idea how many times I go on Steam and I'm like, which version of the game is this? And then I have to then they don't reply or any number of things. They don't, so just make sure you vet what version you're on. And there's a localization issue, I guess, that's occurring on Legacy that I didn't even know was a thing. So I'll have to go back and I'll have to patch that. A lot of Chinese players and whatnot, Japanese players and like that are saying that the localization isn't working. And I went and I loaded the game and it doesn't work. So I'm not sure what's going on there. So I will have to patch Legacy next week to fix that issue for Chinese and French and Russian and all the other languages. So they're not properly switching for some reason. So I'll fix that. I'll check that out. I'll fill that in sometime next week. Just bear with me here. I saw the reviews, saw the discussion threads. Don't know what's going on there. It potentially was a cache or local issue when I started rebuilding the game where I needed to regenerate it, and I didn't regenerate it, so I have to fix that. I'll fix that, take care of it. Because the localizations are in there. It's just they're outdated because some of the newer vehicles were added and they don't have translations. So there's, yeah. Okay, so other than that, though, let's see what we have there for questions. Or I guess start filling in your questions while I fill the air. I need mech questions on Steam, on the Discords, on whatever. And I see Phoenix raise his hand on Dynasty ago. So Phoenix, you have the floor. Hello.
Hey, I was wondering, can you get like variants of the infected? Like for spitters, they have a healing spit rather than an acid one, or bloaters that buffs nearby infected.
Yes, that is something that we want to do. We're saving that for when we re-add the lieutenants. We added the lieutenants a little too early. We like to do this sometimes as we make mistakes. Is that one of the things that we shouldn't have done is we added lieutenants in and didn't actually give them enough nuance and detail to actually make them fleshed out. And the gun mechanics in the game were not very good. So it just turned into like a weird rock, paper, scissors where you'd lose in 1 nanosecond. So we're not re-adding lieutenants probably until later this year, if not early next year. We're going to focus all of our efforts on Chelsea. And what we want to do is when we do the Chelsea, when we do her lieutenants, we want to make it to where they have offshoot mutations of the infected that work with them, that cater towards each lieutenant's unique play style instead of just being a reskin of Chelsea. That's just weird. So it's one of those things where it was a good idea on paper, but we're going to have to execute on that a little bit better, which is why with this rebuild, I'm making a lot of different changes in terms of how things are implemented and done to just kind of make it fire on all cylinders. Is that all? Is that all your question?
Actually, I just came up with another one. Is it possible to kind of use people operators as a sergeant or as another form of like in between lieutenants and regular infected or special infected? This is something that somebody else came up.
Explain that a little bit more.
So like, you know how everybody got their own operators that they customize and make. So when they get infected, probably have them like run back and kind of like mutate to kind of have their own, kind of use like their own
Behavior.
equipment against them.
Like, so what
Yeah,
State of Decay
yeah,
does.
yeah, pretty much. But unless
Yeah.
they're not like regular infected, they can actually think for themselves, like lieutenants.
Let me think about that for a second.
But they're not as strong as lieutenants. It's kind of like a
Yeah.
in between.
Hold on. What was that?
Yeah, you're welcome, Krieg.
I'll be fine. I'll be in my base.
Your base won't. Your base won't.
Yeah,
protect
so
you
will
for
they.
long.
They'll be in there too,
That's what you think.
Let the
knocking right
escalation
on your
begin.
door.
Okay, so then let me think about that one.
Hey, if I don't get
Let,
PvP,
let me think about
figure out
that because
something.
you figure that's an interesting idea. And that we have a system in place to where theoretically you could have like mutilators, other things that get applied to them when they do get turned, so that you basically turn your operator. The gun part, they're gonna drop the gun because I don't want to get back to gun be like the dynamic civilian groups are gonna be the incubator for fixing gun combat, so it feels more rewarding and not like the weird shit that would happen in Legacy. So I don't want to incorporate the guns on the infected for like what we did in Legacy yet until we fix that. But I am interested by like having mutilators where we increase the health or we take the stats of the operator and we have that, or even your abilities that are non-combatant roles could basically mutate or cause different like things that cause them to like, be stronger in some ways. And you can't rebuy that operator potentially until you hunt them down and kill them. Something like that could be interesting. But like
Hell yeah.
that's a wish list item. It's nice to have, but that's something that is on the back of my mind for when things calm down, when we get out of these like more strenuous areas of development of getting the core back in. All right, Riff, your turn. And I'm gonna switch to YouTube for questions. So if you have questions, YouTube, you're next. What's up, Riff? You style me. You dead? Maybe he is dead. Okay, we'll come back to Riff. So let's see for YouTube. Yeah, that's the biggest thing, on Dragon, is that I don't like corporate bullshit. Like, you figure I'm all for transparency and communication and actually having a dialogue, even if it's not always something you want to hear. At least it's transparent and it's honest and it's not just vaguing it in some, like, corporal bullshit where it's, like, trying to spin something weird. Where it's like, look, it's taking longer than we thought. We need to spend a little more time on this. We fucked up on that. We need to change this. We need to rebalance that. I'm always going to be blunt. Yeah, so Dervar.
You don't want the core. Oh, it's
We're
going to be
enriching
this
gameplay
long,
by
or it's going to be
diversifying our
enriching gameplay.
portfolio of weapons by removing 3 weapons. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, some weird shit they say. I don't care about that.
Yeah, it's just some dumb. We're doing this because we're making.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
excuses.
It's like you figure, at the very least, I am transparent that not everything went the way we intended. That we basically like made mistakes with the legacy version and that we're trying to rectify them with the rebuild. I get shit for that, rightfully so, but it is our first game and we're experimenting and we're trying to find what's fun. We're trying to find what works. We're working with our community and we're being transparent. And at the end of the day, there's nothing else I can do besides just working through that line of thought and learning from our previous mistakes and just listen to what people have to say. Riff, I re-invited you to talk. So hopefully he'll speaketh. Hello, speaketh.
Hello.
What's up?
So first off, just off of what Phoenix said, infected operators would be pretty dope. I could definitely get behind that. Regarding like the whole
Yeah.
bridges, as someone who plays more as like an operator than an RTS player usually, it's obviously pretty appealing to have like all the decks free. Would it be possible to have like the individual bridge sections like selectable? That way you could like press tab, and I think you might even said tab earlier. And like make the layer above like opaque or disappear entirely or something like that way you can see what's going on below. Because the same could be applied to like the tunnel logic there.
Thinking.
I don't know how that looks on like the technical
Okay, so
side.
what
but
you're saying is totally doable. It's just the landscape is the only technical problem. Is that the landscape is one-off object that's like we'd have to come up with technical solutions for hiding that. When it comes to hiding the upper bridge, we could simply just do a visibility call on the local side, so it's not replicated. Like little Timmy on his other computer doesn't need to see that you're hiding the bridge. It's just everyone does it in their own instance. The only problem is that I don't know. I mean, it works in games like Cities and Skylines because there's no combat. But let's say, for instance, there's combat going on in the underbridge, and people that are new to the game or don't understand the all the nuances, or like, how do I see that? Like, they're dead before I even look. Fuck this game. So that's the problem. Is that you figure like it's the barrier to entry of that system versus making it a little more simplistic and having the topper row, because you figure. I feel like just having that mountain is already something that makes it kind of weird, and we're gonna have to already R&D something for that section. But then keeping the bottom area, I feel like introduces a lot of uncertainty and a lot of noob traps of people just not understanding where their units went, how to find them, how to hide the bridge, unless we automate it. And then when do you choose when to show the top bridge versus the bottom bridge if you automate it based off of zoom? So like you see, there's a lot of like initiating situations where it can just deteriorate the gameplay. Like, I don't know. It's a good idea if you're playing it like a third-person shooter, like the Division or the Arma. I feel like that's a no-brainer. But when you're making an RTS game, I just feel like we have to take some kind of concession in terms of realism to simplify, which every RTS game we play nowadays simplifies and refines their environment to fit the gameplay loop. So you're not like having to invent a bunch of new systems or new like areas that's a niche just for that one area of gameplay. Now you could make the argument that if we ever add the subway system would be a precursor to the system, or vice versa, where you would do the under bridges and being able to see under the landscape to do that. But it's like we have enough already on our plate, and I'm trying to cut the bullshit and get to a point where we are back to what we were at the beginning of the year with everything in legacy and the rebuild by the end of this year, hell or high water. So every little thing that I add that'd be a nice to have, or little divergences here and there, risks muddying the water, delaying the timeline, and causing even more people to be mad at us. So at the end of I feel like in the grand scheme of things, I have to make that choice as the game director, even though it'd be amazing and cool to have that under area, to cut it out, close it off, keep the top bridge, and no one says we can't explore it later down the line. The area is modeled.
That's what I was going to ask. If that's like a follow-up kind of post-launch or whatever.
That's the thing, though. It's made. It's in the game. It's not finite. It's like Stellaris. I was talking to Phoenix a couple of days ago. They make changes in the betterment of the game, of like sudden radical changes every once in a while, as they get more resources, as they get more players, as things kind of mold and adapt. And like I like that. I like that approach to design, where it's not just making a new sequel and throwing out the previous game. I like the idea that the game is an evolution. It's been an evolution since 2020. It's an evolution till now, and the rebuild is kind of like a big step up in terms of that evolution. I know some people see it as not that. They're entitled to their opinion, but it is what it is at the end of the day. So you figure, Any other questions before I move on to Khan?
No, that's it. Thanks for what you guys are doing. Look forward to seeing how the things play out.
So let's see for YouTube if I don't ignore them. Okay, so Spiffy has a question, then I'm going to jump to Khan. Hold on. I wanted to ask, is there any plans for updating your civilian factions? I made a post that included it in the 5 things you want y'all's had on Steam. I read that thread probably every couple of days, every week. There are a lot of cool ideas in that thread. I'm going to link that thread. We don't have one on Steam. Sorry, on Discord, because I want to just consolidate everyone in one location. I know the common denominator is Steam. But I'm going to link that in chat in both if you guys want to read that sometimes. Because you figure that's our wish list for DLCs and content in the future and other shit post launch. So you figure the idea is that like the game's done, the game's concrete, stuff that we want to put it over time, we'll look at that list. Stuff that we want to basically potentially make expansions for the game, we'll look at that list. You know what I mean? Like how Project Zomboid does their development, where the idea is that like it's a really good incubator of gauging, are we in alignment with the community? What can we add? What can we enhance? What are we not doing good enough? It's like the spectrum is across the board in terms of what people are posting. From game design to basically just what the team could be doing better, to what they could be designing better, you name it. You know what I mean? It's a very helpful thread of just gauging it. And when it gets larger and there's too many pages, I'll make a new one. But it's really cool to see. I love that. I love that level of engagement from our community. That's what I want to see. And when it comes down to your idea for this civilian factions, yes, I don't want to make the same mistake that I made in the original, where I put in the dynamic civilian groups, and people just randomly run around, and they're just kind of an annoyance, and you just kind of blow them up, and then they go away. So like you figure, I want to have a logical flow rollout where it's like I want to do the vehicles and the doctrines right now, and get the save system in, get the custom, get the radio music in this month, and then the vehicles and the doctrines will definitely bleed over into next month, 30 to 60 days at least, and then next month towards the end of the month will be civilian evacuation. We'll start that. We'll focus a month on that, and then at that point, the end of the end of November to December will be what you're talking about. But by the end of the year, I'm trying to get everything back to what it was. So like by December, I want to focus a full month on dynamic civilian groups, and I want to take the systems that I've built for the infected, that level of cohesion and intelligence, and bake it into their thought process. Because I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but there's a plan now. There's a from Battlestar Galactica. There's an actual plan now in terms of basically when these AI are executing, there is a director that is orchestrating them. There's like the gas towers are placed strategically, the infection pods are placed strategically. They cordon you off. They counterplay you. They exploit your what you're doing, how you're doing it. I want that system to be incubated and battle tested with the infected, and then adapted and improved for when we add gun bearing units to basically take it the rest of the way. So then that way we could have the militants and the civilians and the raiders where they have a better understanding of how they operate, how they do diplomacy. Because like I'll give you an example, and I'm going to pull up my code here. Probably shouldn't. People are critics when it comes to programming. I'll probably get a TED talk on my programming by a YouTuber. But you figure, let me pull up. I'll show you an example. Let's find Visual Studio catches up. It's opening and loading. Like, there we go. We're going to go to the FM_affected, and we're going to go to evaluate pandemic. Just so people don't know, I'm just bullshitting and making shit out of my ass, because nowadays there's so much scrutiny towards early accesses. I feel like everyone's trying to fuck you over nowadays. So you figure this is my evaluate pandemic, and this gets ran at a function at a faction level. This is the override for the infection, where this is what they run through to evaluate what they should be doing in the world at any given time. You know, where do we have, what day are we on? Can we build hero units? Can we attack someone? Should we launch an investigation? Should we spread in own zones? Should we spread in other zones? Should we improve the defenses in our zone? So, like, and then these functions right here are like, should we build a gas tower? Should we build pods? How many pods do we have? So this is basically an inventory of, has anything changed recently? Has any pods been destroyed? Has any pods been created? Like, did that builder I sent out 30 minutes, did he make it over there? Great. Let's use that new location as a staging ground. So then the idea is that from there, this forms the basis of everything to come. Because in Legacy, a lot of things were put in piecemeal and we didn't really truly know what we had, what we were building. We didn't really truly know what we had in front of us. It started out as like an XCOM, kind of like XCOM Company of Heroes hybrid, and then we ditched the XCOM vibes because it was like away teams and defense teams, and you can only have like 12 people outside of your base zone, and then you can have a max of like 15 or 20 guys in the defending zone. It was weird, but that's what I mean by early access. We evolved. We kind of like shedded our skin of like trying out different ideas and experimenting, which we got shit for, but that's what made the game great. That's what made the game the potential of what it can be by us seeing what people wanted and then weighing that against what we could do in the moment. So when it comes down to this, of like, this is an evolution of the last 5 years of essentially seeing what people want, seeing how these systems need to be built, and essentially building it from the onset of everything that precedes instead of the other way around. We put the infection in and we put Chelsea in, and then we're like, wait, we should really consider putting civilians in and having like putting like they add another level of sim if they fight each other or they fight Chelsea. Let's put that in there. But wait, that's decentralized from the way that Chelsea evaluates the world, which means that we can't do it one way and then it works for everyone. So instead, this time around, we were like, well, why don't we create a housing or a director for every faction? And that faction looks at everything that's available to them. What is their goal? What is their ethos? What is their personality that we generated? And then it does what it deems is necessary to fulfill those requirements. So in her requirements, you can see an example of like choosing a base of where we're going to start, updating the day if it's needed, and then can we, expanding. But a dynamic civilian group would have a completely different update pandemic loop where they would override attacking factions in terms of how do they come to the decision to attack you or attack another faction? How do they come to the decision to defend their location? Investigations are defense missions. If something's gone dark, something's been attacked, we need to investigate and send out parties. Spreading is spreading. So this would be, we would override these things for like other groups, so they would understand, well, we need to spread in our zone and take dominion over it. We need to spread to other zones and take dominion over those, is the idea. And then you can kind of start to see where like the next time this loops around, some of these could influence these can influence this on the next loop, where a decision they make to expand into another zone could put them in bad reputation to another group. But they roll at the end of the day, who gives a fuck? We need the resources. If they're going to hate us, they're going to hate us. So, because we want that level of dynamism. Now, in Legacy, we accomplished a lot in terms of basically, like, they would actually roll personalities. They would roll, I like that group, I hate this group. And then they would basically fight each other, fight you, and fight the infection. We want to implement that in a way from this base where it builds on that, and there's even more levels of sophistication to where it's like we can take this base, flesh it out for a month, and focus on just civilians. Michael can model and make a firefighter group, a military group, ambient civilian group, and then that way we can roll their ethos of their personalities, and then they operate within that rule set of what we program of like generally what they're going to do based off of their personality. So we would subtask this theoretically, and we would have like rolling numbers and percentages of like, oh well, if you're a raider group, you're attacking to basically thrive. You're Genghis Khan, you're getting in there and you're gonna fuck shit up. And then from there, and only then, would you consider spreading into that zone because you don't want to deal with other combatants potentially affecting you. Or maybe they would make the decision to spread into the zone and then immediately launch their attack on that new base. So you can kind of see how this all trickles down for what we're building. So it's like, oh, he's not just making this up. He's not just saying it of like they improved it, they fixed this, they changed that. No, we did. That's why it took us 8 months, 10 months, 9 to 10 months to get to this point of taking everything everyone has said to us over the last 5 years and building a good foundation. So I'm going to stop talking now and get, that guy left. I'm so sorry. He'll never come back. I talked so long that guy that raised his hand ran away. Where's Khan? Oh, I'm so
he's
sorry,
still
Khan.
here.
Talk, come up, speak. I'm on a spiel. I'm deving again. I invited you to speak.
No, don't.
Hello.
Hi, hello. Oh yeah. Hey, don't worry about it. No, I was just kind of like listening, and I was like, all right,
You have a
cool.
question?
But no, yeah, well, okay, well, I do have a question, or well, kind of a
Hit me with
suggestion.
it.
But first of all, yeah, like absolutely with like like having to tear down the game and rebuild it. Like you are pushing the boundaries with game design. This isn't. There is no other game like this. So yeah, you're definitely gonna have to like throw things out as you find that it doesn't work. It's part of how it goes. I'd assume like you're pushing new territory. But as far as my question or I guess suggestion when talking about those 2
Yeah.
layers of bridges there, yeah, I know you suggested maybe just like walling off that lower section, just putting a bunch of cars piling up, or I guess
Yes.
in or something would be cool. But I was thinking like you could just make it a building and have it like a refugee camp hiding underneath. Like people have like flooded there, and so it just acts as a building. So it'd be simple, it's there, and then if it gets, if infection comes to the area, hey, it clears out, whatever. Like just as a simple like way
Well, I
of
mean,
dealing with it.
it would either be that, or it would having it to where they're non-playable entities, and it's like it's the God damn it, I'm having a brain fart. It's the National Guard, where they close it off, and like it's just a checkpoint with like like you do a division type wall. So the other idea is to make it to where it's totally obvious of why you can't go there and why the infection doesn't hit it. Is that main lane is still for CERC to get in and out, and they're trying to control the flow. So that lower sections could just be a National Guard, like division type concrete wall that no one's getting through. And they're leaving the top lane just for CERC to get in and out, and they just blockade it at the start of the lower bridge and on the inner part of Treasure Island so that the players don't think they can go in that underbelly. And then that way it gives the player the context clues of like, oh, I can't go there because it's out of the play region. Because yeah, I don't know, because if you put people there and you do what you're suggesting, then it might entice people to think, oh, if the infection comes, they're going to kill those people, but they're not going to because they're not playable. Usually the problem is if I make it the other thing. So like I get where you're coming from, but I would probably go the National, because in the lore, the National Guard's job is they're just security. They're on the outside, holding the cordons, while CERC is coming in as the primary agency, like the CDC. They're on the ground. They have the military. They have the military assets. They're just on the outside holding the border, and then CERC is in to do the work and basically like ascertain the situation. Any other questions that you had? I don't know. Any follow-ups?
No,
okay.
No,
sorry it took so long. I went off on one of my dev spiels where I'm like over-explained something. God help me. Okay, so questions. Anything else? Let's see. Let me check YouTube, and then I'm going to check Steam, and then we will get to a point of wrapping this baby up. So let's see what we got. Let's see. Yeah, so Spiffy, that is why I took the time, and we all took the time to build the foundation the way we did. And like you figure, it was about building it to a way where I can override this and use this in any faction I want in the future. So Pierce, Natalie, the more like complicated sub factions would use this subroutine. The ambient civilians, or not ambient, but the dynamic civilian groups would use this subroutine. So the idea is that like I've basically set up a canvas that I can set, like, because you might get some civilian groups that don't expand. So you want that nuance programmed into the personality where certain functions don't run. Like we were gonna put in like random offshoot groups this time around, where it'd be like a cannibal group, or it'd be like offshoot low chance spawning raiders, where they just attack everyone, hate everyone. And they're a little bit more crazy in terms of like tribal drawings, or like they worship the infection, that kind of shit. So that's the way we saw it, where we wanted to run that simulation all the way down the line in terms of basically how things play. And that's why I'm very motherfucking conscious of not rushing ahead and tapering people's expectations. And part of this was my inexperience as a developer, as I tried to accommodate and get everything in everyone wanted in that moment without having the proper floodgates and the proper self-evaluations to be like, okay, we can't do that right now. We put that in there, it's going to have a ripple effect on these systems, it's going to cause that. It sounds great on paper, but we're going to have a logical flow. And that came from the inexperience of not understanding that. Is that you figure like we want to make everyone happy and put all these systems in. They're all really good ideas, but we have to roll it out. We have to do it in a way that makes sense. So we're not over covering the development pipeline, and at the same time adding in a bunch of cascading failures that are ultimately going to turn the game to what Legacy became, where dynamic civilian groups were like horrible. Good idea on paper, horrible. So, Digital asked the question of more guard towers per zone win, and then quickly, I guess, decided to say this. Let me think about this. Hold on. I don't know why it deleted your messages for spamming caps. That's really annoying. I'll have to check that on Nightbot. You're good, Spiffy. It's being retarded, bro. I don't. I'll have to check the settings on that. You're good. Don't worry about it. I don't know why it did that. Can I remove? Can I override that? No, I can't. Okay. Damn, I can't even see what you wrote now because it literally removed the message what you wrote for your comment. Yeah. Okay. I'll have to.
In mod view.
I'm in mod view and it doesn't let me. It says that SpiffyBot removed this person's message because he wrote caps, but he was just excited. I think it detected that there was too many concurrent caps in the message, and he was just like, "This is really cool," blah blah blah. And it was like, "Whoa, bro, calm down. You can't do that. That's illegal." And it like decided to delete all of his messages in the last 10 minutes. So it's like, what the fuck? I'll check that. I'll fix that. Let me write that down on my whiteboard. Is that Nightbot has excessive cap lock quotas. I'll just turn that off. I don't really care about that. If someone's spamming caps that much, I'll just evaluate it on a per case basis. Anyway, so yes. So for what you guys asked, hold on. How important is that to you right now? In the grand scheme of everything, I mean, is it really that mission critical? You want to come on Voice and talk about it? Hello. Hit me with it.
Heyo.
Hello.
What up, everyone? Hey, so I just think it's like, I know I brought this up before, and I know you guys are working on everything. You guys are trying to spin this thing up to what it used to be, and then some more. I just think right now, I think I can speak for quite a few people that we play with on the regular, is that with all the new things coming in and everything slowly being integrated, like vehicles will be coming soon, yada, yada, yada. More capabilities. It's just right now that like really trying to move in and take a zone, kind of like you were speaking of earlier, where like you build the main base, right? And then the zone's pretty big. They start deploying pods. You need to lock down that zone. Otherwise, the SOC's going to be useless. Like once they've killed everyone there. And, you know, especially in these big play groups where we're getting like 8, 9, 10, 12, 14 people, and then one base has all 6 guard towers. Now, like, sure, that opens up the other 12 turrets that you can build. I mean, I don't know how much work goes into that. It seems like a simple thing on the outside. It's definitely probably not. Otherwise, I'm sure it would have been done. But do you think for now or for the play test, we could like up that to like 12 guard towers, like globally? Or
Question.
is it just better to just go ahead and...
I don't remember off of the top of my head. It's escaping me. But in Legacy, there was a limit per zone, and then there was a global limit, right?
Yes. Yes, it was limit per zone. So you could have like 6 in one zone, 6 in
what
another
was the global
zone,
limit?
6 in the another zone. I don't know.
I don't think they're
global limit. Maybe
hey,
it was
Creed,
like
you would know.
24, or
was there a global limit?
I don't think there was a global.
Yeah. What, all of the zones? There was like what, 16 zones. 16
so okay, so there was no global limit. It was limited on the zone.
I don't know, just under the limit on the zone was 6. But the
I don't think there was a global
global,
limit.
like for all the zones put together.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, there wasn't a global limit, but the amount of zones that you had, you could have 6.
Was there a
in each
limit
zone.
on a per?
I never reached.
So my question would
limit.
be: is that was there a limit based off of the dynamic size of each zone, or was it unilaterally just 6 for all of them?
It's
I
just
think it was
6,
6 for
in
all
every
of
single
them.
zone. Yeah, which gave you the opportunity to lock down like main streets. And that's why you saw me like building every day.
Hold on.
I just had the cities locked.
I'm thinking of what goes into that. Hold on. So you figure it's mapped to a data asset, which lists the global one. So I would have to add a new bool. Realistically, we have to turn off the global limit, and we would have to centralize it to the zone. And then store on the zone on the server the amount of guard towers that have been placed. Probably do a T map. Let me think about that for a second. Hold on. Add that to the registered registry. That actually, now that we have that registered active registry for the infection and for the structures for power now, it might not be that big of a deal. Because you figure now that we have the zone powers and the zone system in, it's a little bit more sophisticated than when Horde. Because when Horde was put in, we had just an arbitrary limit because that was all that was needed. Because like the idea is that the current limit system was put in place for like winters, for I don't know, winters. It's the only thing I can think of right now, where it's like there's an absolute limit of like how many they could build, and we put it in there as a fundamental basis of an RTS game, so we can have one-off unique heroes. It was retrofitted or retroactively rolled into the guard tower role for sake of convenience of time, so we could work on other mechanics and systems. And now it's come to a point of a head with pandemic, is that limit is no longer sufficient. Realistically, we can't use that variable anymore in the data asset. It has to be zeroed out, and we instead will probably have to map something to it. We have to probably have a whitelist on each zone and have it to where there's a designated amount of towers or guard turrets that are allowed per zone dynamically. Because realistically, what we should have done in Legacy, and what we're going to do this time around with the rebuild, is that we'd make the amount configurable at the level designer side preset. So that way, if a zone is bigger, it would accommodate you a couple more guard towers and a couple of more turrets. So that way, it's a little more forgiving. So let me write that down because I'll have to maybe involve Derek for some of the UI updating. But technically, I can probably do most of that. I could try and squeeze it in next week, but no promises. But I can tell you that we'll try and get it in by the end of the month. So let me just put that down.
Yeah, no
That
worries.
would probably help the AI attackers as well, because they're not trying to funnel all the way to that one base with
because you got
6 or
Krieg
4
building all
towers.
6 guard towers at his base, and then the rest of the map.
Well,
They're calling out
so
like
the
that.
problem with the current gameplay loop as it stands right now is that you're incentivized to basically build your initial base and then roll it out. Well, the idea would be is that you have to destroy your guard towers and your turrets in your inner base and then roll them out along the front. But then that leaves your main base undefended. Should your base be, you know what I mean, as you lose it, it literally punishes you, because then if you can't get those towers or those turrets back up, then you're fucked. So I can see the argument. Yeah, I can see the argument.
Effect.
I can see the logic in it. It's more so just it's a symptom of pandemic now being in, and that basically the systems that we put in there are limited in horde mode are no longer sufficient for the complexity of pandemic and it being more zone oriented. Because in horde it's fine. It's fine on paper for the most part because you're only defending one location at a time, and we could plan for it. But even then, you can make the argument that putting that in would also benefit horde mode greater, because then you could have a team defending the next objective down, and they could already have pre-placed turrets and guard towers. Because remember when we would play, and that if we were about to lose the base, we would start destroying our turrets and our guard towers, so the guy behind us could start building them. So, yeah, that's dog shit.
Right.
So I could see the argument. It's more so just copium on my side of trying to push it out longer so I could get more of a bigger line items in. Because you get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Yeah, absolutely. So can you just increase the number of them globally, like how the turrets are 12? Like, can you do the same thing for the towers for now, just to buy you time? Or is this kind of something that
I'd
you'd
rather just
wait
do it
on
all the
and
way down the
right.
line, because the problem is that that introduces a new
For sure.
exploit when people build 20 guard towers in one zone, and then it's insurmountably hard for
Right.
the infected to break through, and it's insurmountably hard to balance that because everyone's still operating on fixed costs, fixed resources. So
Yep, makes
we
sense.
can't linearly scale. It's the same reason why, like, I went back and I played Age of Empires and I played Empire Earth a couple months ago, and I always get shit for this of adding guard tower limits, and then I go and play these games from 10 to 15 years ago, and they do the same thing. And then I go and I play like They Are Billiards and other games like that. And as far as I know, there are limits in those because every one of those turrets makes it infinitely impossible. Like when you get to a certain thing, you get to a point of convergence where you can't do enough damage, or they can't bring out enough units to breach it. Does that make sense? So
Yep.
yeah, so it's just one of those
Absolutely.
things where it's like it's a juggling act, and I think that it's going to be interesting. Could you figure? I think with the system that I'm suggesting, based off of what you guys are pushing for, it would allow you guys to have like bigger zones that are easier to defend because it allows you more resources in that zone in terms of like the amount of turrets you can build. Is that the only thing that you guys would say is like big pressing that we're not considering? Besides the turret limits and the guard tower limits, is there anything else that's being overlooked that anyone feels on YouTube, Steam, or Discord? Anything you want to add, Digital?
The last thing I want to add is that I totally agree with kind of your outlook on like the lower bridge portion into the larger portion of the map. I think for now, because since you guys are so fully like cooked on everything that you've got to do and everything that you're working, that I would agree with just blocking that bottom section off. That way, the new players that you were talking about too, like it's visual. You can see what's happening on the bridge because you're only focused on what's going on at the top layer. So it just makes sense from, I think everyone's standpoint that it would be like block the bottom section off and pretty much what you said. Just like you could come back to it later on, but I wouldn't focus too
Okay,
much time
but
on it.
but do you feel like there's any other points of tension from what you've been playing in Pandemic? Because you've been playing Pandemic quite a bit with us. Is there anything else that stands out at you from a standpoint of we need to like maybe prioritize some resources, fix this? I know bugs is a big one. I think everyone that I talk to every fucking day is like, there's like 3 or 4 bugs. They say that it's their inconveniences, but there's like 2 or 3, maybe 4 at most that they were fixed. The game would be like amazing. Do you agree with that, or is there like a counter argument you or anyone else has towards that front?
Me personally, no. Like I'm a builder at heart, so like the guard tower thing's like kind of my biggest one. And then aside from the bugs that pop up and the known things that you guys are actively working on every day, we're working on them we're working trying to find them for you. But no, I mean, really, that's kind of like the one thing for me as I'm trying to, the operators are moving in, people are, doing QRF and commanding the forces, and then we're building the base, and then it's like, hey, build the checkpoint out there and build this out there, and I'm like, okay, I don't have power over there. I just want to build a
Isn't it
guard tower
amazing?
real quick to get me, something going. And
But isn't that
yeah,
amazing how we get
so
that level of communication of like when people are playing, like when it actually flows?
yeah, I'm ready for the
Yeah,
playtest
like
after this.
literally,
I'm
it is like
dying for it.
it is just it's one of the best things ever. When we get like that, like when I opened the game the other day and I saw people playing co-op, I think it was like 6 people playing in Europe. Because I could see if I could judge from the pings, and I was like, "That's really fucking cool." Because I had just finished the play session and I was patching some stuff, and I had put out a patch, and I was like, "Oh, they're on the older version," and I was just kind of like, "Oh, that's really cool. I see that. Like, I want to see more of that going into Halloween." I want to try and break
Absolutely.
100 people playing the game online by Halloween. I want to try and beat that, where it's like, even if it's not just like obviously like every server filled. I think that'd be really cool to log in and see like 100 people across all the servers playing the game, having fun, trying out the helicopters. By then, the Ajax will be in, and it'll just be one of those things where it's going to be very interesting. Oh, and just as a reminder, we are working on the save system. after I get like some later this next week after Chelsea, that's what I'm gonna be working on. And Derek's gonna be working on the vehicles, aside from some bug fixes that we'll keep doing every day. Is it? Oh, Quivly mentioned some stuff. Quivly, you don't like to talk on mic, do you? You like to hide. You don't ever raise your hand. Let's see. I want to hear your sexy voice. Hiding. So let me see what you wrote. And that's why you write. Come on,
Come on,
Quivly. We
Quivly.
hear you every day in voice.
What the hell?
So let's see. What else have we got for YouTube while you writes that? So, Spiffy, for your comment about loss conditions, that's one of the things that I'm saving as like right now, technically you soft win, you soft lose. There's no real end game screen that pops up. You just decide to go back to the hub. I'm trying to get to the point, ideally either this month or next month, where we can add in an actual win screen, a loss screen. The loss screen is they drop a thermobatic bomb. And the win screen is if you win. So then you just go back to the hub and it's just rainbows and sunshine. So it's one of those things where we have to do that. But it's like I've been more sold on the idea of just getting all of the major lines items and mechanics and systems in, that people can come to the conclusion that the game is over. They've gotten their enjoyment out of it. They need to go back to the hub and potentially start another campaign per se. And with Treasure Island coming in by the end of the month, you guys will have a lot more mission diversity when it comes to like playing. But I will try and facilitate that when I can. That is on my list. For Quivly, 2 things for operators and helicopters: ability to possess operators that are already present in a helicopter, so you don't need it landed or grounded, another player to even use the feature. Possibly idea based on some other games. Ability for operators to switch between the free seats within the garrison, so he could change sides mid-flight. Yeah, I can agree with those. Those would be. I'll put that on the wish list. And I'll try and facilitate those where we can squeeze in small little line items, because there's basically if everything goes to plan for the amount of bugs we get to fix going into Monday, Tuesday, Derek will ideally hunt down and eradicate with me the attacking logic, finish up the remaining of the helicopter targeting issues, finish up some minor pathfinding issues that people have reported over the last couple of days with them, and then he'll be able to start the radio music. We'll get the radio music in so you guys can DJ for your friends on the helicopters. I didn't forget about that. That'll be coming next week. And then he'll finally move on to custom game options, because he figured custom game options has been delayed at this point for a week or two while we just been working through the backlog. And then I was like, wait, we got the helicopters in. We need to set the foundation in for the workshop music, because that was a big part of the game, is playing music for yourself and playing music for your friends. And YouTubers loved it. Everyone loved it. It was a cool mechanic where you could play your music. And the idea would be is it's going to be server authoritative, where if you don't have that track, the client's not going to hear anything. So the client is not forced to download any music unless there's an agreement of a collection of workshop mods that everyone subs to. Or there's a collection of tracks that everyone's going to send to each other on a zip file. And the idea would be is that if the host plays a song or a client uses a song, and everyone has that track, everyone hears it. But a client can't choose a song that the host doesn't have. So it won't play. So we don't create an alternate dimension where everyone's listening to their own music. If you're playing in a game, if you're doing a joint effort, the idea is that everyone's on the same vibe, everyone's on the same page in terms of music, in terms of coordination, communication, you name it. You're the GM if you're the host. So to us, that's the first onset of how we're going to go about doing the music and implementing it and getting that set up. So then that way you can essentially like have that kind of level engagement and fun of like playing the dozens, if not hundreds, of workshop mods that are available, is getting those babies in. The chemos will be coming. I would wager before, so we'll get the support packs and the chemos in after all the vehicles are in. So right before we start doctrines, we'll get those chemos in so you can switch your chemos again. We'll go in the direction of Stellaris, but we'll have to make it to where whoever owns basically the server, whoever's playing as a server, you just get their chemos. So then that way, you know, not in this weird proxy world or whatever. So we're gonna try that approach to doing it, because we'll have to patch the DLCs and move some files around and make ciphers and unlock keys and all the other fun stuff. So there's some technical stuff that has to go in behind the scenes to get that working on multiplayer. But that is something we haven't forgot about. That we're going to get it in there. Just bear with us. We're just trying to process out all of the vehicles at the same time. Oh, let me float this. Do you guys want skins or alternate outfits for the CERC is for like full CBRN gear? Michael keeps wanting me to do it. They give you guys an option to do like a support pack or some kind of thing where you could get like it's non-branded CERC CBRN gear. I don't know if that's something you guys want us to do is like another way to support development. So I'm gonna float it out there if you guys want that. It'd basically be like a total mesh swap for the CERC where you can choose an alternate assault, alternate heavy, alternate scientist. Same stats, but they operate like the operator. Well, they operate like the operator in terms of the visual cosmetic change. So I'll put it out there for something you guys can talk about. One other thing that I do want to show is what I did in the announcements channel yesterday. And then we're going to wrap this up. And then I need to go do that change for the blow-up guy. And then we're going to have a play test. So one of the things that Michael has been prototyping is he's been trying to figure out other standard infected and how what to make them look like and making different levels of infected based off of like how long the virus has been going on. So this is one of the ideas that he was playing with and experimenting. We were throwing it in the announcements channel yesterday. And it seemed like it was like an 80% approval rating, but 80 to 90% approval rating for basically having like substandard like standard infected mutations that would basically be like this, where they have slightly different stats, they're a little bit faster, they have a little more health, and they're offshoot mutations that you would see muddied into the other standard infected. Because as it stands right now, he's working on new standard infected meshes, as well as coming up and conceiving some concepts for special infected and like, you know, mutations in the middle of them that would add some kind of like nuance to like, when you're out in the city, you'll run into different strains or subtypes of infected that will have different ways of playing essentially that are just random. You don't know what you're going to run into as you're just kind of running your kill teams through the city. So I don't know. I'm going to float this out there for people to talk about and discuss. Tell me if they like it. Tell me if they hate it in the YouTube comments or on Discord. It seemed like people liked it, at least 80 to 90%. So I just wanted to throw that out there as an announcement we did a couple days ago. That pretty much concludes everything we did this week. And definitely just bear with us as we're getting through October. There's a lot of things that are on our list for us to bang out and get to y'all. And we'll slowly but surely churning them out, getting them situated. And just to do a quick, super fast review for people that are just going to skim to the end of the video. For the rest of the month, our goals and our priorities are as follows. Implement bug fixes. Sorry, I'm going to get hit myself. Bug fixes, radio music, custom game options, fixing the Juggernaut, fixing Chelsea's AI, doing the threat analysis that I demonstrated earlier and finalizing it so it's done and we never have to change it again because it'll form the basis of all AI combat in the game now and in the future. The Ajax is an incubator for driving. We'll put the Ajax in the next week or two, depending on how all the other things that I mentioned goes. That'll be the incubator. We'll put it in there with the tow and the MG. Potentially go as far as putting in the smoke launchers that we had planned, so you can hide inside the smoke and the infected will lose you. They'll like lose contact and their visibility decreases. So you can use it as a mechanic to flee or have a Juggernaut guess where you are. And basically, we'll get that in there. Depending on how that goes, it could be a week, it could be 2 weeks, it could be the rest of October. Because you figure a big fucking point of contention in the legacy is the vehicle driving and the pathfinding in terms of their reliability. And I'll say this and I'll say it again, is that in the last versions, when I went back and I triaged the game a month or two ago to try and fix as many of the problems that I could do, that wasn't going to like break the game, is I fixed a vast majority of the pathfinding issues. If you look at the paths that are being generated, they're no longer the problem. The problem is the vehicle's ability to understand the characteristics of how their vehicle in particular handles in terms of when do I turn, when do I slow down, when do I accelerate? Because that, and then when do I stop? those are the things that we need to kind of take from the merge. Sorry, from the legacy that I did fix from what we did previously and build on that base in a week or two sprint to basically get the vehicles to a point where we're happy with them and then scale up. It's going to be the same exact approach we took with the Sparrow and the Little Bird. We'll put the Ajax in. It'll be our feeler or incubator test unit. And then when we're happy with it, we'll start to introduce the other variations. And then the other thing for this month is going to be extensive bug hunts, performance tweaks, the save and load system. And then as you guys saw earlier, you will be getting Treasure Island by itself. And there will be a phased rollout over supplement weeks and months going into December, the Christmas sale, to get you guys the rest of the playable region. So in a nutshell, those are our priorities going into, and the population meter. I lied. There's one more thing. So those are everything that we're aiming for October to get to you guys. So you guys can play it. You can run your pandemic games and everything else. So we're going to conclude it there and wrap it up. We're going to segue into a playtest of everyone. If you want to come on YouTube or on Steam, if you just purchased the game, you're watching on the Steam store broadcast, you can play with your own friends. You can play with us. Doesn't matter. I'm going to be releasing a patch in the next 20 to 30 minutes. It's going to fix the exploit with the blowup guys. And then it's going to basically add in the weapon balance we've been talking about. And then we're just going to play for a couple of hours, and we'll conclude tonight at that point. Again, I want to thank everyone that comes to these and leaves their feedback, talks to us about what they're liking and what they're hating, having the dialogue. We're slowly but surely churning away every week, as you can see by going through the receipts of this podcast series. And I believe that in the next 30 to 60 days, you guys will have a real gem on your hand in terms of what we had previously. If you want to consider supporting the game additionally, consider checking out our Patreon, consider the support packs on Steam, consider the merch. We have shirts and other like posters and like gaming mouse pads. They're the giant ones on our merch store on Teespring. Everything helps. Everything goes through development. We work day jobs. So we balance out the game development of however much we made every month against our day job and how much we can allocate, which is why sometimes we seem slow and sometimes we seem fast. And at the end of the day, we're committed to seeing this through. So thank you guys so much, and you guys have a great evening. If you happen to jump in, we'll be in a voice Discord room, playtest 1.